7 years ago, the day the great catastrophe occurred. The clear blue sky suddenly darkened, heralding the terrifying event called the Dungeon Outbreak. Because of that event, many people died. Han Sung-yoon's parents were no exception. On the day he lost everything in an instant, he blamed himself so much he cried tears of blood. From then on, he vowed to himself that he would definitely become a hunter, to tear them limb from limb and exterminate all the monsters. And 7 years later today, the scene takes place at the Disaster Memorial Park. He had been kicked out of the Hunter Training Center. He could only sit in a corner beside his parents' grave, lost in thought. A glimmer of hope about being a hunter flashed in his eyes. Remembering earlier, the instructor at the center told him bluntly, "Member Han Sung-yoon, I'll get straight to the point. You don't need to come to the training center anymore." Hearing this, Han Sung-yoon immediately questioned, "Why are you suddenly saying that? Why am I being kicked out?" He began to explain, "Listen carefully. Awakened individuals only take a few months to complete the training in the exclusive training room, and you know that. They usually debut as hunters, right? But my friend, you've passed that deadline. It's been 7 years. While I'm at it, I'll also say, your talent is worse than trash. If we keep you, our center's reputation will also turn to garbage." The other youth standing around him all showed disdain, seeing him come to the center every morning to train and being so persistent. But it's really unlucky. Unlucky my ass. That guy is so ignorant for not knowing his place. But how can there be someone who can't increase any stats for 7 years? Remembering those words, he felt extremely bitter, crushing the can in his hand. He trembled with anger, thinking, "Can't unlock unique traits or skills, how come my stats haven't increased at all?" Suddenly, he heard the voices of a mother and child next to him. The mother asked, "How did your father pass away?" The little girl raised her hand excitedly. I know. When the monsters attacked, Dad died saving people until the very end." The mother was teaching her child by asking her, "That's right. So if you have to go through something difficult later, what will you do?" The little girl replied, "Be strong and don't give up." This sentence struck Han Sung-yoon's heart at that moment. He suddenly came to his senses and his eyes widened. The mother hugged her daughter tightly, praising, "You're so strong." Suddenly they turned their heads, noticing something. It turned out to be Han Sung-yoon, who walked over and bowed his head as if silently thanking them. Then without a word he dashed off, leaving the mother and child bewildered. He hurried away thinking, "That's right, I've endured for 7 years. I can't stop here, and I will never give up." Han Sung-yoon returned to the training room on a night of torrential rain. After knocking for a while, the door to the room began to open. As soon as the instructor saw him, he tried to send him away. "Please go back." But he tried to plead with him. "Director, just this once, please help me take this hunter exam one more time. I can't give up like this." The instructor gave a faint laugh. Then he turned back with eyes like a demon, cursing, "Hey, you bastard, why don't you understand?" Seeing this, Han Sung-yoon was a little stunned. He continued to point at him repeatedly, scolding, "Or did you come here because of the fee money that was wasted? All right, you dog, I'll return half the membership fee, okay?" Han Sung-yoon assured him, "No, I didn't come here for money." But no matter what he said, the instructor still punched him straight in the mouth. His gentle punch sent Han Sung-yoon flying straight into the pile of trash behind him. The instructor smirked. "You say it's not for money, huh? You damn failure." Han Sung-yoon, both in pain and humiliated, lay silently in the trash pile. He truly wished that if only he too had a unique trait. "Oh no, if only I had just a little bit of talent, that would be enough." If that were the case, then... Suddenly a system window appeared before his eyes. "The Tower of Trials praises you for your unwavering will." He was stunned and surprised, silently wondering, who is that? What does praises mean? Then his entire body, though clearly sitting on the ground, felt as if it were falling into a bottomless pool. He only had time to exclaim, "What is this?" His cries for help echoed in vain as no one could hear them. The instructor turned back to look at him and cursed, "This damn bastard." But when he looked towards the trash pile, he couldn't see him anywhere. Holding Han Sung-yoon's hat in his hand, he was extremely puzzled. But then he also tossed it into the trash can, feeling that he was indeed a troublesome person. Han Sung-yoon was now falling into a place like the bottom of an endless deep sea. After a while, he could barely hold his breath any longer. Then he escaped the water, preparing to fall into another space. The system window appeared. The Tower of Trials has selected all suitable candidates from Earth. Seeing this, he thought, could it be that a second catastrophe is happening? The system asked him to choose a difficulty level. The rewards would also correspond to the chosen difficulty. He was pursing his lips tightly because he didn't know what was happening, but his intuition told him he had to choose this, to be able to seize the only opportunity. As soon as he placed a finger to select the difficulty, he was teleported by the system to another space. He was now about to enter the first floor of the tower. All stats and abnormal statuses of the challengers will be restored. The trial will begin soon. Get ready, challenger. The place where he landed was a vast desert. He was looking ahead, very bewildered. The system provided him with a sword and informed him that the goal of this trial was to survive. The reward upon completion would be unlocking a unique trait. Hearing that, he recalled the hardships he had endured for 7 years. Am I about to receive what I've struggled and trained hard for these past 7 years? It appears in the form of a gift just like that. He looked at his empty hands and gave a bitter laugh. This is truly insane. Then he walked towards his sword. Before he could even touch it, the ground beneath his feet suddenly shook. Han Sung-yoon stumbled forward, not understanding what was happening. The system announced the trial had begun. What emerged from the ground was a sand golem with a supermassive body. Han Sung-yoon turned and looked up at it in bewilderment. He only had time to exclaim, "This is crazy." Moreover, the system announced that he must survive for 9 minutes and 58 seconds. Han Sung-yoon could only run for his life from its giant feet. His face was now filled with fear. The system also informed him that the penalty for failing the trial was death. Wherever Han Sung-yoon ran, the monster chased him there. After running for a while, he was exhausted and thinking, can I really escape these sand golems by just running like this? Even though it looks slow, it's getting bigger, and is also very strong. Moreover, in this desert environment, my stamina can't endure 9 minutes of continuous running. He remembered the sword in his hand, gripped it tightly, and thought, this world gave me a sword and told me to survive. But that's easier said than done, anyone can say that. My only options are to run and die of exhaustion, or fight it and die. He had a terrible headache, unable to figure out how to defeat it. This helplessness reminded him of the words in the training room. Unlucky? Damn it, he's so foolish he doesn't even know his place. In this world, you're nothing. He was gritting his teeth, not wanting to die pathetically just by running away. He absolutely did not want this to happen. I've spent 7 years trying to become a hunter. Theoretically, I can confidently say I know more than most hunters in the field. If I keep running, it will be useless. At least I have to find another way to survive. Golem-type monsters will stop moving if I can destroy their energy core. However, their cores are usually located in hard-to-reach places. His gaze turned towards the peak of the mountain ahead. He wanted to climb it to find an easier way to reach the energy core. Han Sung-yoon managed to climb to the top of the mountain. The monster chasing him slipped and fell. He quickly jumped towards it, as this was a good opportunity. He finally got close to its energy core. His face was beaming with joy. The first strike after all that chasing. He delivered it to the golem. However, its energy core was too hard, so his sword bounced off upon contact. It was much harder than he had imagined. The monster was raising its head, staring intently at him. Han Sung-yoon grimaced, sweating, and cursed, "Damn it!" He aimed at its energy core again, hoping he could strike it one more time. But something unfortunate happened. The monster woke up and squeezed his body like an ant. Its eyes stared at him, just like those contemptuous guys in the training room. Curses echoed in Han Sung-yoon's mind. You're nothing. A jinx, you damn bastard. A fool who doesn't know his own limits. His hand, under pressure, began to bleed. He shouted at it as if telling everyone, "Stop it! Shut up, you bastards." At the same time, he threw the sword, stabbing it straight into the golem's energy core. This time, it really hit the target. The golem then disintegrated, causing Han Sung-yoon to fall with it. It turned into fine sand, burying Han Sung-yoon underneath. He sat up, clutching his chest, wondering, did I kill the sand golem? Even then, I barely managed to defeat it. The system congratulated him for clearing the first floor of the Tower of Trials. He stood up, smiling with immense satisfaction. Along with that, he received many more rewards. He stood there staring at the system window in disbelief. For the past 7 years, he had truly tried very hard, but the only thing he received in return was contempt and sarcastic remarks. Now he could also prove that he had become a hunter. However, he knew all of this could only happen if he survived. Something else appeared before his eyes. He was bewildered, not understanding what this dark red thing was. Where the sand golem died, a pile of black bones appeared. Although a bit bewildered, Han Sung-yoon decided to touch it to see what it was. The system told him this black bone essence was his unique trait. That red thing gradually seeped into his heart. He could feel the soul within his body, meaning he could hold more souls if he continued to absorb them. He closed his eyes thinking, if I try to do this, then I will be able to feel it. It felt like energy was overflowing throughout his body. One clear thing he realized was that his stats had really increased. Thinking back, he hadn't been able to increase his stats for 7 years, no matter how hard he trained, but now he could finally enhance his own stats. His face suddenly brightened with the thought, if I return with this skill, I can become a hunter. Teleportation gate appeared before him. It was used to move to the waiting room, and Sung-yoon still looked at it bewildered. Then he slowly approached the gate. He knew he had no other choice now. Stepping inside, the gate pushed him, making him stumble into a waiting room. Han Sung-yoon remained lying there, unable to get up because his injuries were getting worse. Suddenly, he felt something warm happening. He quickly stood up and looked at his body, finding that his wounds had completely healed. Han Sung-yoon walked towards the bed in front of him, muttering as he went, "My body recovered after the trial ended, huh? Never mind that for now, but why would they put only one bed in such a huge room?" Without thinking much more, he immediately plopped down onto the bed comfortably. After lying around until he was bored, he started calculating again. What should I do now? Should I escape the tower? And why did it summon me to this place? Then he suddenly snapped back to reality due to a system notification. The system informed him he could use 5 commands, so he slapped his face to calm down. For now, he had to focus on survival. For the time being, he couldn't start the trial on the 2nd floor yet. Then he browsed the community to see what was trending. The so-called community was a place where people could discuss and talk to each other. He noticed everyone was chatting in confusion, and it seemed like non-hunters had also been dragged into this. Just then, an administrator joined, so the conversation was disabled. They said there was important information to share with those who had passed the trial. He was also thinking, it's true I don't know how to get back. I need to remember all this information. Focus. First, they taught everyone how to use the points received. They would be used as currency in the Tower of Trials and in the shop. In the Tower of Trials, one couldn't even drink a single drop of water without points. Knowing this information, he understood, I need to do everything to get used to the tower's rules, including not being able to drink potions without points. This means to get points, I must enter the trials. He covered his face, somewhat dissatisfied, because he thought he could become a hunter if he returned. Suddenly, he noticed the sword beside him. He thought he couldn't do much with just this sword, so he went to the shop and bought a shield. All hunters lose their stats when they enter the tower, but it seems easier for them to relearn the skills they previously possessed. That's why I can't forget that I and they don't share the same starting point. If I don't train, there's no way I can catch up to them. After a tiring training session, he collapsed onto the ground again. He felt a warm energy spreading throughout his body. Then he stood up refreshed, because this recovery ability in the waiting room helped him train more easily. However, at this moment, his stomach was rumbling loudly in protest. He didn't know what to do about this hunger. He continued to browse items in his inventory. Currently, he had to be careful because he only had 40 points to spend. If he hadn't received additional rewards, he wouldn't even dream of buying a shield. The time remaining for the 2nd floor trial was now 17 minutes. Even the chat channel was currently in disarray. Now they were all very quiet because it was almost time for the 2nd trial to open. He was also silent, wondering if he could survive again, but his eyes showed clear determination. He affirmed that he would definitely survive. The countdown had one final second left. Han Sung-yoon stepped into the teleportation gate. He set foot in a strange new forest. This also surprised him greatly. The objective this time was to assassinate the orc chieftain within a limited time. Han Sung-yoon was standing on a cliff observing below. Below him was the orcs' encampment. The orcs guarded their encampment very carefully. Han Sung-yoon hid behind some bushes, observing their actions. He calculated in his head, usually in trials, if an orc tribe has guards, it can be assumed that the tribe also has hunters. Successfully defeating an orc hunter is hard to predict, but the problem is still their numbers. To defeat all the orcs, at least a team of E-rank hunters or higher is needed to ensure survival. At this moment he felt extremely stuck and didn't know what to do next. For now, he thought he should retreat first, then make a careful plan and return. After a while, a bright smile appeared on his face because he had figured out a way to complete this training round. He quickly ran into the forest to find a pile of wood with a torch in his hand. His eyes stared intently at the blazing torch. Then he placed it into the system. And so it was successful. Although orcs are always dull-witted, they are actually quite a diligent species. The hunters always go hunting in the morning and return at sunset. From now until then, he still had plenty of time. The only way to complete this round, a round with the most challenging difficulty and a large number of high-level monsters. Breathe fire. Han Sung-yoon began to approach their encampment. He observed them bit by bit. According to the Hunter Association, orc guards don't always stand guard. They might return to the village to eat and rest. Taking that opportunity, he threw the torch towards their encampment. Very quickly, the torch spread, burning down the wooden encampment. This caused the orcs to panic and run around chaotically to put out the fire. Before that, he had to kill at least 2 orc guards. The orcs had to run into the forest to get water to extinguish the fire. This orc realized something and turned its head in surprise. It turned out its comrade had been stabbed through the head by Han Sung-yoon's sword. The orc lay dead by the stream, simultaneously activating his unique soul-summoning trait. Han Sung-yoon absorbed its soul, overjoyed. Behind him was a monster that looked much larger and stronger than the others. Han Sung-yoon recognized it as a guard. He had barely thought that when it swung its sword at him, but luckily, he managed to block it with his shield in time. Han Sung-yoon struggled to defend and used his stored souls to temporarily increase his strength. After a struggle with it, he had beheaded this guard. While absorbing its soul, he sighed and thought, just a little carelessness and I would have been in big trouble. The soul of this guard also increased my endurance. If this continues, the risk of fighting other guards will also be reduced. After resting, he continued towards the encampment like a god. The monsters that saw him all showed fear. He identified 4 of them in front of him. Along with an old chieftain, he calculated that if he dealt with the guards, then defeating the chieftain wouldn't be a problem. Thanks to absorbing their souls, these orcs were no match for him. Wherever Han Sung-yoon flew, monster blood splattered. They were split in half by him in an instant. This one was very aggressive. It rushed towards him, using all its strength to strike. While blocking the blow, Han Sung-yoon's arm was broken. He was in immense pain at this moment. But he noticed that the guards had separated from the chieftain. It seemed they were no longer protecting him. This meant the only remaining obstacles were these guards. With determined eyes, he used all his strength to fight them. A decisive blow, he thrust his sword through the monster's body. It was falling at his feet amidst smoke and fire. The chieftain took the opportunity when he wasn't paying attention to unleash a powerful stream of mana. Han Sung-yoon had to struggle to defend again, or he would die. The chieftain thought he was dead and laughed gleefully. But when the smoke cleared, his body was still standing tall. This greatly surprised it, making it sweat. Although he looked completely battered and bruised now, he also achieved the Fire Bearer achievement. He stood opposite the chieftain in the hazy smoke. It raised its staff and unleashed a wave of energy towards him, as if wanting to incinerate him. But surprisingly, that arm of its was severed by Han Sung-yoon's strike, flying away with the wind. It shrieked in pain frantically. Now it looked at him with fearful eyes because both its hands had been cut off by him. It hurriedly turned and ran towards the house. Han Sung-yoon watched it go. Then he also slowly walked towards its house. He swung his sword, a single strike tearing the door off. But seeing something, his gaze suddenly froze. It turned out the chieftain was hugging its two children, trembling. One of them, very quick-witted, ran and knelt at his feet as if begging him for mercy. Looking at the orc's pitiful face, he thought to himself, "So you guys also value family, huh?" Just like that, he fell into a silent void. He remembered that day, his parents urging him to run and escape the horrific massacre. But unexpectedly, the small orc was slowly pulling out a knife hidden behind its back. With eyes showing no fear, it raised the knife towards him. Han Sung-yoon quickly used his sword hilt to strike its head, cursing, "So foolish. Even if I turn into a ghost, I will exterminate all you monsters." As he finished speaking, he also completed the second-floor trial. Returning to the waiting room, he looked at his tattered shield and sighed. "I can't use this shield anymore. Thanks to you, I'm still alive." He also felt like he had just escaped death. Observing the situation in the community, Han Sung-yoon was surprised that half the members had died. It's really intense. But his eyes caught something, widening in astonishment. It turned out he saw someone talking about how to return to Earth. After being away for a few days, he already missed his normal life on Earth. The system informed him he could use a question ticket. Each time you ascend to a new floor, you will receive answers by sharing information learned from question tickets. The chat room is to become a place to share what you discover. Skipping the minor details, this is the main point. Upon completing the 5th floor, a temporary return stone will be available for purchase, which you can use to return to Earth for a few days. There's also information that after clearing the 7th floor, there will be a large-scale system expansion, and an item for permanent return to Earth will be sold. Knowing this, he thought to himself, "If I return to Earth with my current abilities and performance, I can become a prestigious hunter." His current traits and effects were also very advantageous. He was scratching his head in frustration, really wanting to return to Earth. If I could have this power on Earth, it would be great. But for now, he had only completed the 2nd floor. It was still a long way to reach the 8th floor. He told himself to think positively. My stats, which were once 0, are now average and increasing to 20. Then he threw his torn shirt to the ground with disgust. He needed to absorb the souls he had risked his life to obtain. After absorbing them, he felt his body overflowing with energy, along with the power that made him dash forward. For the first time, he felt this was what he had heard about. Is this the world beyond human limits? Then he used his power to the fullest, running up and then down from the ground to the ceiling. But because he was too engrossed in running, he slammed straight into a wall and fell to the ground. Because his strength had increased suddenly, his body couldn't quite handle it. While resting, he would go to the shop and buy a new shield. Along with that, an armored dagger to increase his attack power. Next was something called an assassin's cloak. After gearing up, Han Sung-yoon now looked much cooler and more like a main character. Han Sung-yoon sighed in relief. I'll get used to all the equipment and stats before the next trial. Then he began to train to get used to the new equipment. And his goal now was to become so strong that no one could approach him. Han Sung-yoon, after training again, began to enter the next gate. The difficulty here was also increased, and the theme this time was a duel. Once inside, he realized it was a cave filled entirely with darkness. In just 10 seconds, the Shadow Guard would appear. Han Sung-yoon had to be ready, as it could approach from any direction, just like the sand golem. Behind him, a shadow suddenly appeared in the exact same stance he was in. He was startled and glanced back. Before he could understand what was happening, the shadow had swept past him, leaving a gash. The cunning shadow laughed sinisterly. Although injured, he immediately turned and kicked towards it. Then they both stood opposite each other in the exact same stance. The monster laughed horrifically. Han Sung-yoon looked at it with extremely wary eyes. He had to use a rapid recovery skill to heal his wound. If he hadn't dodged in time just now, it would have struck his spine. Only now did he realize its stance. That bastard, it's mimicking me. But anyway, he decided he would find out by fighting. Then he rushed towards it at lightning speed. The monster was startled and turned its head to look. As he swept past it, he also gifted it with some loving sword strikes. It began to scream, but it could heal its own wounds. Han Sung-yoon realized it could use a healing skill. The monster, after seeing through his move, began to imitate it bit by bit. Its sword path was exactly like what Han Sung-yoon had just done. Knowing it would do this, Han Sung-yoon lifted his leg and kicked it straight as it approached. And so it couldn't strike him as expected. Han Sung-yoon rushed forward again, calculating, if that's the case, I can use the weaknesses in my own tactics to defeat it. He continuously struck it with perfect sword strokes, making it unable to block in time. This was what he was hoping for. But surprisingly, its sword tip was pointed straight at his face, only 5 centimeters away. A loud clash of weapons erupted. Han Sung-yoon quickly used his sword to knock the monster back. While he was still wondering what the hell was going on, the monster used his move again, continuously striking at Han Sung-yoon without rest. While defending, he knew that just now wasn't a coincidence. This guy unexpectedly improved in such a short time? Now it looked at him with wary eyes. As for Han Sung-yoon, he activated the cloak's trait to increase his movement speed. He determined that he couldn't drag this out any longer and needed to finish it in the next minute. Then he rushed towards it again at dizzying speed. Suddenly, the monster raised its sword and struck at him. Very quickly, Han Sung-yoon dodged the blow and turned to kick its hand. Facing the sharp sword tip, the monster showed fear on its face. Han Sung-yoon used all his strength to thrust his sword hard into its arm. He finally smiled because he had succeeded. The monster screamed continuously at his sword strike as its shoulder was torn apart. But unexpectedly, it returned the favor with an identical sword strike, taking Han Sung-yoon's arm. He was very shocked looking at his bleeding arm. Then he screamed fiercely, no different from the monster just now. After struggling for a while, he looked at it with bitter hatred. It's not over yet. I need to focus more. Seeing the monster standing there dejectedly, he was a bit puzzled. He didn't understand why it wasn't moving anymore. Even with such advanced healing ability, it still needed time to recover. He saw this as an opportunity to kill it. But without a sword, how could he kill it? Currently, he only had 11 seconds left. Han Sung-yoon, with a determined look, gripped the shield in his hand. He knew it was dangerous, but trying and dying was better than dying uselessly. With that thought, Han Sung-yoon flew towards it again. While the monster was still standing there waiting, it used its remaining arm to raise its sword, preparing to strike him. Han Sung-yoon still rushed forward at lightning speed. Then he used his shield and his entire body to ram into it. With his strength, Han Sung-yoon made it fall hard. The monster lay sprawling on the ground, its long body trembling. Han Sung-yoon stood before it, also panting exhaustedly. He proceeded to give it another blow. Go die! The shield landed squarely on it, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Returning to the waiting room, his body also recovered from then on. Han Sung-yoon slowly placed his hand on the wall, planning to do something. Then he punched it hard to test his strength. The wall he punched caved in deeply, as if a bomb had fallen there. Only then did he feel relieved and smiled brightly, saying, "Looks like I've completely recovered." Remembering the shadow monster from before, he still hadn't gotten over his shock. He was absorbing its soul and feeling it. Compared to the monsters he had encountered before, the soul density of this one was completely different. The rank of his soul summoning trait increased to E rank. Along with that, he could absorb their skills. Just like how he obtained rapid recovery after being near death. This skill is not easy to obtain at all. He let out a sinister smile because he had never thought he would possess such a strange trait. Of course, there are still risks within the trait. Anyway, this also depends on my own luck. After resting for a while, he went to browse the community. Since this was his third time, the waiting room felt as familiar as his own home. He noticed something strange. People were discussing information about the next trial. It was an integrated trial. He thought it seemed like he would have to act as a team soon, but this seemed to be a competition between hunters, simply meaning trying to kill each other. He was a bit stunned. Will I have to kill people in the next trial? The conditions for the 4th floor trial. Defeat the Goblin King within the time limit. The trial will also conclude if the challenging team perishes or the time limit is exceeded. Han Sung-yoon had entered the 4th floor. With him were 2 other teammates. The 3 of them stood in a magic circle facing each other. Han Sung-yoon felt this sensation was a bit strange because until now, he had only encountered monsters. The girl was the first to speak. Now that we're a team, let's start with introductions. Then she smiled brightly and said, "My name is Lee Ha-yeon. My specialty is supporting the whole team, and I'm an E-rank hunter. The voice of the other guy rang out. A hunter, huh? Anyway, it seems the hunter in our team isn't too bad. Then he introduced himself. My name is Lee Sung-hoon, a hunter specializing in close combat, a D-rank hunter. Han Sung-yoon looked at him, thinking to himself, why is he behaving like that? If he's D-rank, he's probably not ordinary. Then he spoke up to introduce himself. Nice to meet you, I'm Han Sung-yoon. I also specialize in close combat. Moreover, I'm not a hunter yet, just hoping to become one. Lee Sung-hoon, looking displeased, asked, What? You want to become a hunter? You better not drag me down. His words astonished Han Sung-yoon. But then he asserted to him, I believe I can do my part well. He continued with a contemptuous look. Is that so? I'm warning you. If I see you becoming a burden to the team, you better get lost immediately. Hearing these words, he got angry with himself. All right, I'm used to it. I forgot they always look at me with such contempt. Sung-hoon walked off, then glanced back at him. Hey, newbie, just stay behind and handle the small fry. Han Sung-yoon observed him, assessing. Even though I don't like this guy, I can see his skills are pretty much as he claims. Skills are the most important thing in the Tower of Trials. The tower door began to open. Before they could see anything, a group of goblin guards jumped towards them. Sung-hoon had to struggle to fend off each one. His face was quite scratched up. He frowned. Why can these goblins act so organized? Damn newbie, what are you doing? Hurry up and fight. Han Sung-yoon angrily glanced at him. At his feet now were many corpses of the remaining goblins. He said to him coldly, Aren't you even paying attention to what's happening? The girl also tried to say, I'll finish the spell soon, just wait a bit. He angrily shouted, Shut up, hurry up and support me immediately. But she had already used all her support spells. Han Sung-yoon, beside the girl, called out, Hey, Hunter Lee, Ha-yan. It seems he needs help, wait for me a moment. The girl hurriedly called out to Han Sung-yoon, Wait! But Han Sung-yoon had already quickly flown towards him. The girl said worriedly, If you leave your position, who will watch my back? But she was very surprised when she saw something. Turning around, the goblins behind them had all been killed by Han Sung-yoon. She exclaimed in astonishment, Impossible! In front of Sung-hoon, 2 monsters were flying towards him. He had to struggle to defend, cursing, These bastards! Behind him, a monster was taking notice. That monster, holding a spiky iron ball, threw it at him. The iron ball hit his arm hard, making him unable to hold his sword anymore. He could only watch helplessly as his sword fell to the ground. Before him was a goblin with a sword, preparing to strike his head. He screamed, blaming Han Sung-yoon. Damn it, if my team didn't have a damn clueless newbie, then. Just as he was shouting, Han Sung-yoon rushed forward and cut the monster in half. He clutched his head, looking ahead in bewilderment. The other monsters were also very surprised to see their comrade cut in half. Han Sung-yoon stood before him amidst his bewilderment. New newbie. Han Sung-yoon said to him coldly, Lee Sung-hoon, step back. He could only gape at him, stunned. Han Sung-yoon repeated coldly, You're in my way. Finishing his sentence, he continuously slaughtered monster after monster with single sword strikes. Because he killed so many, he received the Goblin Hunter achievement. Quick as lightning, Han Sung-yoon absorbed all the souls of the monsters. He calculated in his head, With the traits I've absorbed, this black smoke emanating makes it so the monsters can't observe my actions. Now, fighting them is much simpler. Along with that, he also absorbed a skill of the goblin race. The night vision ability made his eyes visibly brighter. My vision in dungeons has expanded a lot, and I also have a sense of detecting targets within my sight. This made him extremely pleased. This is too lucky. Lee Sung-hoon still didn't want to acknowledge his talent and even laughed loudly. Newbie, you're really lucky. You only encountered low-level goblins, but luck is also a form of strength. Congratulations on defeating them. The other 2 looked at him with an expression of... Han Sung-yoon put on his hat to look cool and made a decision. Thank you. From now on, I will lead the way. If there's any danger, I'll inform you both. His cold gaze seemed to ask them, Do you 2 have any objections? He also had to look back at Han Sung-yoon warily. After a moment, he replied, Fine, but if I'm not leading, what should I do? Han Sung-yoon said, Your job is to stay behind, keep watch, and protect Lee Ha-yeon. Ms. Lee Ha-yeon, please walk in the middle of the formation now. Pay attention to any movements on both sides and report anything to me. She also happily obeyed him. And now let's move forward. Inside, there were even more monsters than before. Han Sung-yoon continuously absorbed their souls. One after another, their heads flew into the air. Going deeper inside, Ha-yeon felt something wasn't quite right. Just now, there were many goblins, but now there are none to be seen. Han Sung-yoon noticed something appearing. Then he shot forward without a word. The two behind him didn't understand what was happening. Ha-yeon exclaimed in astonishment, "Oh my God!" It turned out that in front of them, the monsters had been completely killed by someone. Sitting in front of a corpse, he thought, "It seems a group has passed through here before. How were they so fast?" Touching their blood, he realized, the blood is still fresh. They probably haven't gone far. We need to hurry. He silently calculated. If that team defeats the boss here before us, then that penalty is only one outcome: death. Han Sung-yoon immediately urged them to hurry. Elsewhere in the tower, some monsters were flying out. This young man stood opposite them, and another guy with 2 daggers in his hands in a badass pose sitting on a monster's head. He exclaimed in boredom, "These monsters are too annoying. Let's find the boss quickly." Waiting for all the monsters to rush in, he then leaped up and slit their throats. Then he rushed off, looking down on everything before him. These weaklings. Very quickly, a crowd of monsters lay dead at his feet. 2 other guys just stood by, flattering him. "Seon-hyung is so good, thank you so much." He frowned, looking at them with contempt. "You two are really useless, especially you, Jin-ho. What the hell are you doing, not doing anything?" Jin-ho had nothing to retort. "Yes, it's all thanks to you, Hyung." Xian looked towards a door ahead and continued, "Forget it, scolding you two is pointless. Open the door and fight the boss." He ordered Jin-ho, "Hurry up and open the door. What are you standing there for?" Jin-ho walked off, cursing under his breath, "Damn bastard." A notification appeared as they met the conditions to reveal the boss. The Goblin Chieftain will not appear if there are more than 2 teams in its area. Teams within this restricted area also cannot exit until the Goblin Chieftain is defeated. The entire area they were currently in was now under restriction. Jingen wondered, what, 2 teams? Beside him, this guy realized something and called out, "Hyung, look!" It turned out to be the arrival of Han Sung-yoon's team. He advanced with an unwavering gaze. Juyan showed an interested expression. "So there's another group of bastards, huh?" Han Sung-yoon also stopped and reminded everyone. "They seem quite strong, especially their leader. Let me go first." He continued, speaking to Ha-yeon. "Ms. Lee Ha-yeon, stay behind and cast agility and recovery spells on me. Mr. Lee Sung-hoon, carefully protect her and don't let them get close." With determined eyes, she also replied to him, "Okay, I understand." He looked at them warily. They defeated the goblins so quickly they can't be underestimated. "I'll go first. If anything happens, you two pay attention and support me. Be careful to maintain that energy, lest you don't have it when needed." Ha-yeon also used her energy appropriately. All his stats were gradually recovering after being supported by her. He moved forward thinking, "I've mastered this power. To get here, I've gained quite a bit of experience, but this battle will still be quite difficult." On Sion's side, he also reminded his teammates, "That guy is coming over, pay attention." Han Sung-yoon flew forward like a rocket. Wherever he went, dust and smoke rose. Sion looked at him, slightly surprised. He turned back and said to his teammates, "Lee Jin-ho, use your shield at maximum energy immediately." Jin-ho quickly deployed his shield to protect them. They were protected by a sturdy shield layer, but Han Sung-yoon still flew towards it and prepared to strike. When his sword tip struck, the shield began to crack. All 3 inside were thrown back by the force, tumbling chaotically. Han Sung-yoon leaped up again without a moment's rest. Jin-ho was the first to be struck by him. The other 2 could still block, so they weren't dead yet. Even his teammates were gaping in astonishment. Han Sung-yoon glanced towards him, Sion. At this moment, Sion was looking at him with extreme anger, his eyes like bullets. With just a look at each other, the 2 rushed in and attacked continuously. In the space, only the loud clash of weapons could be heard. Han Sung-yoon felt something was very strange. His skills were definitely more refined than his opponent's, but his opponent could use strange stances to block his attacks. Then he decided he needed to use more power. Then he circled behind him, directly striking down with his sword, hoping to end it here. But he was no pushover. He swung his sword back, knocking Han Sung-yoon's sword away. This surprised Han Sung-yoon beyond his expectations. He blocked Han Sung-yoon's sword strike and laughed sinisterly. At this moment, Han Sung-yoon realized the difference. It was his eyes. He could see through Han Sung-yoon's sword path. Xian turned back towards him. But before his eyes was his shield hovering above his head. This was intended to reduce his visibility. Behind that shield, Han Sung-yoon appeared. Seizing the opportunity when he couldn't see, he gifted him with a sword thrust through his body. His mouth spewed blood as he cursed under his breath. Damn bastard! The system only took this opportunity to appear. Congratulations on completing the special mission. Seeing that everything was over, his two teammates approached the corpse. Han Sung-yoon's hand was bleeding profusely and trembling. Hyeon noticed this and was very surprised, wondering, is he trembling? Then she spoke up and asked him, "Excuse me, are you okay?" His face, covered in blood, replied, "I'm fine." Hyeon realized, he must be in shock after killing someone. I thought he was tough and cold. Han Sung-yoon spoke up, interrupting her thoughts. I'm planning to fight the boss right now. Is everyone okay with that? Both of them said they were fine. And this is the face of the boss after fighting him for a while. He was riding on its head, delivering sword strike after sword strike. It collapsed at his feet, and at the same time, the objective of this trial was completed. Witnessing everything, Sung-hoon looked at him in amazement and exclaimed, "He's a monster." When he was able to return, he quickly made his escape. Leaving Han Sung-yoon and Hyeon standing there looking at each other, he spoke to her, "Lee Ha-yeon, I hope you returned safely." She nodded but continued to stare at him intently, which made him raise an eyebrow. Then she spoke up. "Perhaps what I'm about to say is a bit out of line, but you only did what needed to be done. That was something someone had to do. If Han Sung-yoon couldn't do it, I would have had to." At this, he finally smiled brightly and said, "I'm glad you think so." The young woman placed her hand on the system panel and sent him a friend request. She was about to turn and leave, saying her final words to him. "Thanks to you, we completed the 4th floor trial, but it's a bit annoying that I didn't get any reward." After returning to Earth, look for Lee Ha-yeon of the White Silver Guild. It was the first time a girl had sent him a friend request, so Han Sung-yoon didn't know what expression to make. He just stood there watching her disappear with the door. He looked back at the dead souls of the monsters. Now he was all alone. He had to make a decision. It turned out that besides the souls of the monsters, there were also the souls of those he had killed. He wondered if he intended to absorb a human soul. When I first discovered the ability, I had always hesitated, knowing that once I did this, it meant crossing a line from which there was no return. His hand gently rose, having made a decision. The soul of that person was gradually being absorbed into him. He had to become stronger, but not by killing people. However, if the situation demanded it, he would still do it. The dream of becoming a hunter had awakened deep desires within him. The trial tower had given him a chance, and he would hold on to that chance tightly. He wanted to continue ascending this trial tower to its highest peak. Han Sung-yoon returned to the waiting room. At this time, each player was being ranked. The system asked him to create a nickname for himself. He placed his hand on his chin and thought for a long time. Then he decided on a name. That was Hunter. Looking at the list of ranked individuals on the 4th floor, his name was also among them. He noticed something and his eyes widened. His rank was now 16. It turned out he was surprised because his rank was higher than he thought. Challengers in the top 50 were called pioneers, and they would also receive benefits on the 8th floor. If he maintained his position as a pioneer until the 8th floor, he would also receive a special privilege called an aura. After thinking for a while, he didn't want to think anymore, because he would know what would happen once he got there. Now was the time for him to absorb the souls he had killed. He felt that he had truly surpassed the limits of a human being. A moment later, he bought a return stone to go back to Earth. He wanted to know if he could bring any equipment with him. At this moment, he was very eager to return to Earth. His wish had now come true. He was absorbing the return stone to go back, and he had 3 days to stay on Earth. In the familiar room, sunlight and a gentle breeze softly blew the curtains in his room. Han Sung-yoon fell straight onto the bed he had longed for. He opened his eyes wide and stared at the ceiling for a long time. After gazing to his heart's content, he began to sit up. He looked at everything around him, from the familiar computer to the rules he had memorized in the training room. Only then did he realize he had truly returned. But then he lay flat on the bed again because, first, he had to sleep to his heart's content. Compared to the bed in the waiting room, this place was truly a paradise in his heart. But his body was reeking so badly that even he couldn't stand the smell. He had to jump up and exclaim, "This smell is horrible." And first he needed to take a shower to make it less horrifying. As soon as he set foot on the ground, he saw his equipment. Then he held the sword in his hand joyfully. "I was just doing it for fun. I didn't think items from the trial tower could really be brought back to Earth. But that also means other challengers can do it too. I have to hurry up," he told himself. As more people returned to Earth, it also meant that items became more abundant, and the pockets of item hunters grew thicker. After looking at it for a while, he decided to sell these items for some spending money. But the only problem was that only certified hunters could sell items. Normally, I would have to register for the hunter certification exam and start taking the test on my next return to Earth. He searched for information on his phone, then determined he would be very busy. The scene changed to the training room where he had spent 7 years. The trainer looking down from above at the guys below, relentlessly pummeling each other. Suddenly, a phone rang behind him. He picked up the phone and said, "Hello, Bakryun Hunter Training Center Director Hwang Man-ho speaking. Is that you?" On the other end of the line was Han Sung-yoon, who replied, "It's Han Sung-yoon. Do you still remember me, Director Hwang?" Man-ho recognized him and showed a dismissive attitude. "Of course I remember you. If you want a refund for your membership fee, just do it online, no need to call directly." Han Sung-yoon immediately replied that he didn't need any refund. He asked again to be sure, "Are you serious? Think carefully before you decide." He said immediately, "I've thought it through, however, I need your help with something." He asked again, bored, "If you want to increase your time using the center, I can't approve your request." Before he could finish his sentence, he interrupted, "Help me schedule the hunter test." He retorted immediately, "But have you forgotten your general aptitude test results? Your F rank, the lowest rank on the scoreboard. You also don't have any special traits or skills, so even if you ask, so that means if I pay the membership fee, you still can't help." Hearing this, he replied immediately, "If you give me money, there's no reason for me to refuse." Han Sung-yoon now wore a satisfied smile, having achieved his goal. "All right, let's do it that way. Help me pass the hunter test today." Finally, he managed to drag his smelly body into the bathroom. Only then did he get to look at himself in the mirror again, thinking to himself, "How can such a handsome person like me exist in this world?" He started showing off his six-pack abs and marveled at how much his body had changed due to what he had been through. He stood there admiring himself for over half an hour before realizing he needed to rein it in. But now is not the time for self-admiration. The hunter test is scheduled. I have to go quickly. As soon as he opened the door and stepped outside, his eyes fell upon his gorgeous neighbor. This was the normal life he had long forgotten, making him feel at peace just by seeing his neighbor. Then he spoke, "Hello, sis." In her mind, she thought while looking at him with a displeased expression, "It seems my neighbor is an older guy, trying to become a hunter." She also greeted him back. Just like that, the two passed each other by and said they'd meet again next time. However, she felt a little surprised looking after him. Has he always been this tall? Han Sung-yoon stepped outside and raised his hand into the air. It turned out he wanted to hail a taxi, so no one paid any attention to him. His gaze was fixed ahead, thinking about something. Without a word, he just flew up and glided over the rooftops to move forward. After running for a while, he thought this way of traveling was pretty good. In the blink of an eye, he arrived. This is the Hunter Association building. Han Sung-yoon walked inside under the gazes of the trainer and manager. They stood opposite each other and smiled mysteriously. Han Sung-yoon spoke first. "Long time no see, Director Hwang." He also smiled brightly and asked, What took you so long? Han Sung-yoon gave a half smile and replied, Recently I had to deal with some personal matters, so time felt like years to me. Hearing this, the trainer seemed surprised. Personal matters, huh? Something like that. The person standing next to him now spoke. Hello, I am Inspector Kim In-hoo, responsible for grading the Hunter test. As you already know, for this Hunter test, Han Sung-yoon, you are exempt from the theory test and interview, under the supervision of Director Hwang. Do you have any questions about the test procedure? He walked towards them and said he understood everything. Just start whenever you're ready. A moment later, Han Sung-yoon walked into that room with a sword in his hand. The trainer looked at the inspector and instructed, As I said, make the questions as difficult as possible. Inspector Kim replied, You don't need to worry. I have prepared the toughest opponents for a sword user. He looked down at him and said, Han Sung-yoon, if you are ready, please choose the difficulty level for the test. You can choose the difficulty on a scale from level 1 to 10. In the previous test, he remembered choosing difficulty level 1, and he had lost to a small goblin. At that time, he felt truly humiliated and pained. He blamed himself for being incredibly weak. But this time he had decided. Before he even said what he chose, the trainer standing above began to laugh mockingly. Of course he'll choose level 1. But before he finished, he spoke up. I choose level 10. Hearing these words from his own mouth made him freeze. What? Han Sung-yoon turned his face and glanced at him with a confident smile on his lips. He still thought he was a madman. The test began with defeating the Fire Phoenix. When it let out a shriek, his movement speed was reduced by 25%. Even the crappy sword in his hand began to crack before he did anything. The trainer standing on the field chuckled to himself. He remembered earlier in the sword selection room. He thought there was no way he could pass the test, but just in case, he had sabotaged his weapon. He believed this was reality for those who were ignorant and pretentious. Back in the arena, the Fire Phoenix was starting to spew fire down on him. He just stood there and waited for it to come. This is the memory of trainer Hwang Man-ho. He was on the list of successful candidates who passed the Hunter certification that day. At that time, those who scored enough points were overjoyed and cheered. At that moment, he thought he was the best. However, over time, the gap between peers grew larger. Eventually, he gave up because he couldn't keep up with them. In the world of hunters, talent is everything. He had to accept the truth and stop striving. Standing before a massive door, he believed that people often collapsed before unbreakable walls. And a sophistry in his mind was that it wasn't just him. Everyone was like that. So now, he thought Han Sung-yoon should just give up. Han Sung-yoon hadn't even had a chance to use his sword when the pressure caused it to shatter. He flew down below, suspicious. Even if this sword is low grade, it shouldn't break this easily. Then his eyes began to look towards Hwang Man-ho. He was standing there looking at him with an incredibly wicked smile. He really wanted to see what he would do with that broken sword. Han Sung-yoon was currently facing the Phoenix, which was continuously shooting fireballs at him. Han Sung-yoon looked at it with a serious gaze. Easier than I thought. This is a great opportunity to try out the skill I learned on the 4th floor. That was instant acceleration. He struck a ready pose and then soared high above the Fire Phoenix. The roof he landed on even dented 15 centimeters deep. The Fire Phoenix, seeing this, was also startled. He looked up at it and smiled cunningly. Oh, the speed has increased quite a bit compared to when using the assassin's cloak, huh? And it also had to exert itself to shoot fireballs at him. Han Sung-yoon flew straight towards it from the ceiling. He used the remaining hilt in his hand, decisively stabbing it hard into its eye, causing blood to spurt out. The Fire Phoenix shrieked violently while flying in midair. Han Sung-yoon landed on the ground and observed the situation. As expected, that sword hilt is too short to kill it. He began to grab a brick, then threw it with force towards the Fire Phoenix. The brick didn't miss, tearing its head apart like splitting firewood. And that brick also flew towards the other two, making them break out in a cold sweat. This was like a threat from him to them. The Fire Phoenix fell, and at the same time he completed the test. Han Sung-yoon, standing below, pretended not to know anything and waved up at them. Hey, are you all right? I didn't expect it to fly up that high. He let out a smug, silent smile. Later, an employee from headquarters gave him a C-rank hunter certification card. She smiled brightly and congratulated him. From now on, you are registered with the Hunter Association. He asked her, now I can enter dungeons and sell items, right? That's right. Elsewhere, the trainer's hand slammed down on the table in anger. He was scolding Inspector Kim and demanding an explanation for what had just happened. I said fail him in 10 seconds, not let him pass. Inspector Kim, also annoyed, retorted, hilarious. We did our best as you requested. With Han Sung-yoon's abilities, the difficulty was adjusted so he couldn't pass. The trainer then wondered, so couldn't the rank be lowered further? That's impossible. Defeating the monster in the minimum test for D rank within 10 seconds. If I only gave him D rank, I would definitely receive inquiries from the association. While the trainer was still constantly picking on the inspector, Han Sung-yoon walked in and said, I've got my certification. Han Sung-yoon walked straight up to the trainer and asked evenly, You don't look well, sir. Is something wrong? He had to force a smile. Congratulations, no, I should call you Hunter Han Sung-yoon. It's true, the main character can't resist a little taunt. He asked him, Speaking of which, Director Huang's rank before retirement was C, wasn't it? He was speechless for a moment, then asked back, What do you mean by that? He replied indifferently, Well, I remember you once called me talentless. To be honest, I think you're the talentless one. He was already angry, and now he was even more furious, about to lunge forward and punch him in the face. You little brat! And Sung-yoon just stood there smiling. Just as I thought, he's easily provoked. Now his punch seemed as slow as a turtle in his eyes. Han Sung-yoon then turned around and punched him in the stomach, as if to vent 7 years of resentment. He reminded everyone that this was just self-defense. Saying that, he then gave him a resounding slap that sent him flying 5 meters. And this is revenge. With his face contorted, he flew through the air thinking, could this be the strength of a C-ranker? After that, standing outside the association's door, Inspector Kim handed him a card which made him curious. You want me to become an exclusive hunter for the association? That's right. Inspector Kim immediately made an offer. The basic salary is 1,000,000 won. We can negotiate if you want more, you won't lose out. Han Sung-yoon looked down at the card, a little surprised. 1,000,000 won? That's quite a lot. He smiled brightly and said, Because we see great potential in you. Suddenly, Han Sung-yoon asked him in a cold voice, Inspector, you manipulated the test difficulty, didn't you? This question startled the inspector. With an even colder gaze, Han Sung-yoon continued, I have no problem with the salary, but I will not sign a contract with untrustworthy people. Saying that, he bluntly threw away his card as a direct refusal. 2 days later at Han Sung-yoon's house, the news reported that recently, rumors have arisen about the phenomenon of hunters being summoned to the trial tower. It's true. By now everyone knew about the trial tower. Han Sung-yoon had also sold several items for a good price and made good use of the past 3 days. And now he was staring intently at his phone because it was time. Back to the trial tower. As he fell into it, he was overjoyed because he could finally feel the joy of gradually becoming stronger. Han Sung-yoon had returned to the waiting room after a comfortable 3-day break. He glanced down at the item next to him thinking, my item is here, which means I can freely bring items back and forth between Earth and the tower. The items would be neatly stored in his personal inventory. Then he somersaulted onto the ground with an imposing posture. Then he did an aerobic exercise routine to prepare to enter the 5th floor. After returning, he will receive the Eye of Truth skill. Gaining this skill, he could use it to clearly see the true nature of the targets he observed. He could also distinguish truth from falsehood, in the words of others. Han Sung-yoon hadn't expected to receive such a beneficial skill. This was truly a fantastic skill. He had obtained a high-level skill as soon as he returned. This made him smile so broadly he didn't need a wedding. In preparation, he will buy a lightning sword and a D-rank iron shield. He immediately took the sword in hand and performed a few basic swings. This sword seems expensive, but it only requires one hand, so the slashing speed will be faster, and it has an accompanying effect. Any item with an additional effect is good. Next was the time for him to prepare to enter the 5th floor. Han Sung-yoon flew towards the door full of excitement. The condition to pass the fifth-floor trial is to eliminate the werewolf leader in the valley. Han Sung-yoon was teleported to the cave entrance. He found this werewolf elimination challenge quite interesting. Immediately on the cliff face, many pairs of wolf eyes stared at him, growling. After 5 seconds of observation, the whole pack of wolves leaped towards him lovingly. But he also showed his affection by slashing at them, causing each one to die instantly. With just a few light kicks, he had killed the pack of wolves. He thought these wolves were too weak. This wolf is too weak. The paw of another white wolf stepped out. Seeing its appearance made him a little startled. It turned out not to be one, but 3 super-large, gigantic wolves staring at him with eyes like bullets. It began to howl, displaying its power, but Han Sung-yoon had gifted it with a slash across its head. Although its head was bleeding profusely, that slash couldn't kill it. Because he was much smaller than them, he also felt a bit bewildered and looked up. An excited smile appeared on his lips. It seems the target that needs to be eliminated has appeared. The giant wolf pack began to charge towards him. Han Sung-yoon also didn't hesitate to leap up to begin the warm-up. Only now did he admit, the fifth-floor trial is somewhat interesting. Saying that, he continuously slashed at the wolves, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Very quickly, 2 of them were eliminated by him. He landed on the ground and calculated. The sword skill I obtained on the 3rd floor is almost at its maximum level. Indeed, skills from lower floors aren't as good. I need to find other skills, or the experience gained will be wasted. The 2 remaining wolves pounced towards him. He gripped the sword tightly in his hand to welcome them. Come on, little ones, let me practice a bit. Finally, the entire pack of giant wolves had their souls absorbed by him. He looked at his hand, thinking about the past few battles. The lightning effect didn't activate much. It seems 10% is a bit low. Observing his system panel, he knew, not much experience, but the soul summoning art skill has increased a bit. Let's see how much proficiency increases after absorbing many wolf souls in this 5th-floor trial. Going deeper inside, he guessed he had probably reached the central area of the valley. Suddenly, he realized something and stopped dead in his tracks. The deeper he went, the stranger he felt. Why were there so many werewolf corpses here? Looking at their wounds split in half like this, perhaps someone else had been here first. Even on the cliff face, there were slash marks. Now was the time for Han Sung-yoon to use the Eye of Truth to observe. D-rank light sword slash, a rather fast and precise cut. The person who made this cut has quite proficient skills. He was thinking about someone who used skills proficiently. Although he had analyzed it, there were still many things he didn't understand. It seemed this was a tough opponent. The space suddenly became much noisier. Han Sung-yoon was also bewildered by the sound it made. Then he quickly decided to fly forward. After flying for a while, another cave entrance appeared. From inside, the corpse of a wolf was slashed and flew out. Seeing this scene, Han Sung-yoon knew he had arrived. The system immediately displayed a notification. Condition to pass the 5th-floor trial. Werewolf leader is dead. Determining cause and handling method. He looked at the boss's corpse, also not knowing what to do now. After finishing the analysis, the system indicated that a fake challenger from another dimension had invaded your mission space. Han Sung-yoon looked at this intruder thinking, he's an intruder? A fake challenger from another dimension. He then thought, are there many other dimensions besides Earth? So there are many other trial towers too. Indeed, everything is unpredictable. The fake challenger held his sword and postured. A fake challenger from an underdeveloped dimension, huh? It seems you've come to the right place for a mission. Seeing him remain silent, he became even more confident. Are you too scared to say anything? It seems this will be your end. He raised his sword and pointed it at him. He was still surprised because he had no idea that the target would be stolen by someone else. But anyway, he felt a little lucky that the trial hadn't failed yet. Seeing him say nothing, he continued to bark. The fact that you can't answer me shows you're terrified, right? Well, I'll start then. Prepare to die. Han Sung-yoon looked at him with a serious gaze when he saw he was about to attack. He ran towards him with the intention of giving him a sword strike. Han Sung-yoon began to raise his leg. He lifted the dead monster at his feet and kicked it straight towards him. As he was running, he saw an obstacle, but this didn't faze him. He swung his sword in a single stroke, cutting the wolf in half. Just then, Han Sung-yoon ran up before his eyes. He raised his sword, then circled behind him and stabbed the sword into his back. Something surprised him immensely. His armor seemed to be made of very good material, so he couldn't break through it. He turned his face towards him, appearing like a demon. "You think it's that simple, huh?" Then he directly swung his sword and slashed at him. The shield he had just bought was shattered to pieces by him. Because his strength was too great, his entire body was also sent flying. He only stopped when he hit the cliff face hard. His entire body felt immense pain. His left arm was broken and hung limply. He looked at this scene and smiled confidently. "Oh, I didn't expect you to block my light sword. It's a bit troublesome. You're not as easy to take down as I thought." At this point, he became irritated and shouted at him, "An intruder from another dimension! Why can you invade this space of mine?" At this question, he laughed even harder, unable to close his mouth. Indeed, a clueless newbie. You don't even know what floor invasion is. He bewilderedly asked himself why. Why do these things always happen in my trial tower floor? He didn't answer, but always assumed he would die immediately. Don't blame me. This tower has always been like this. You just didn't know. I won't make things messy and will end this right here. Before he could make a move, Han Sung-yoon stopped him. "Wait. At least, can you tell me what interdimensional floor invasion is?" He squinted one eye at him, looking very questioning. Then he spoke. "Anyway, you're going to die, so it doesn't matter. One of the features unlocked on the 8th floor is called interdimensional floor invasion. You can buy tickets from the shop to interrupt other people's trials." There was one more thing he still wondered about, which was the birth space he mentioned. "Does that mean you come from another dimension?" he asked back. "Where else do you think I could come from?" He slowly stood up and said he understood. He began to use the eye of truth to see if he was telling the truth. And the eye showed that he was telling the truth. Indeed, he wasn't lying. The guy bristled and pointed his sword at him. "You did a very insolent thing. How dare you scrutinize me?" He also stared back at him without a trace of fear. "That's right, what are you going to do about it?" When he saw him talk back, he was also surprised. "What? How dare a clueless bastard like you?" Han Sung-yoon didn't care and asked him, "Since you've given me the information I need in return, do you want to know something interesting?" He just stood there looking at him, puzzled. He touched his broken arm and explained, "I can endure a broken arm like this thanks to something called pain-resistant skill, meaning I don't have to support my arm because of the pain. If I let go of this arm, my rapid recovery skill will automatically heal it. I did that because I thought only if I looked like I was at a disadvantage would you be willing to reveal some truthful information." To him, this was nothing. He asked, "So you're a swordsman with healing abilities? But if your real strength is only like it was just now, it can't change the fact that you're about to die." Han Sung-yoon began to pick up his sword and asserted to him, "I'm not as weak as you think. I don't know why my strength keeps increasing like this." The system continuously announced that his abilities were recovering rapidly. Only then did he get startled and ask, "You have both healing and enhancement skills?" He was preparing a striking pose to enter the battle. First is to use instant acceleration. Only then did he bewilderedly wonder, crazy. How can a fake challenger on the 5th floor have so many skills? Before his eyes, Han Sung-yoon flew towards him. He continuously slashed at him, forcing him to block tirelessly. While blocking, he wondered, damn it, is this really the 5th floor? How can he be this strong? He continuously cursed him as a clueless bastard. He had begun to counterattack, pointing his sword at him. Han Sung-yoon dodged skillfully, causing him to miss and stab into the cliff face. He had to continuously avoid his attacks. His attack, because he knew it was a high-level enhancement skill, getting hit by it would be very dangerous. But because his stats were higher, he was confident he could avoid life-threatening damage. However, the real problem here was his fancy armor. It was high-grade equipment that he couldn't penetrate with his current abilities. But if he continuously applied pressure to it, like this, his whole body felt like it was about to explode. His blood had begun to spurt out through the armor. He trembled and said, What is this now?" With his large body, he collapsed to the ground as if he had no strength left. At this moment, he only let out weary sounds. Han Sung-yoon stood there looking at him and thought, it would have been difficult if that armor could resist the paralysis effect, but luckily, this gamble is over. He kept trembling on the ground, wanting to say something. Until he could speak, he was still incredibly conceited. If it were a normal situation, I would have won. How could a fifth-floor fake challenger have so many tricks? He walked towards him and explained, "You were the one who was careless because you trusted your armor, and the level difference too much. And now it's over." At the tip of his sword, he hastily tried to stop him. "Wait, I'll answer any of your questions." Han Sung-yoon appeared like a demon, his voice cold. "I don't need to." Then he gifted him with a sword stroke to end his life instantly. He turned and walked away, thinking to himself, "I'm becoming more and more indifferent to killing. But if I hesitate every time I strike, it will be a big problem." Before he completely vanished back to where he came from, Han Sung-yoon quickly absorbed his soul. He sighed, looking at his hand. Almost didn't absorb it. "If you die in another dimension, do you disappear?" He waited for a long time, but didn't see the reward notification appear. The system replied, "The difficulty of the challenge has no reward. All rewards will be modified. Rewards from rank C have been upgraded to rank A." Han Sung-yoon smiled contentedly. The original reward changed this much. It just shows how strong that invading knight was. Getting an A-rank skill is awesome. Only after receiving the reward did he agree to return to the waiting room. He immediately went to his inventory. Only then did he sit down to rest and remind himself, dimensional invasion really exists. I can't let my guard down in the trial tower even once. He had many questions until he reached the 8th floor. He didn't know which question to ask the system. Should I ask what the 10th floor strategy in other dimensions is? And will I be warned if a fake challenger from another floor, 10th invades my trial mission area? His question has been sent. He had already received a response. He thought this system was really fast. The system answered him. Floor invasion is a system where you can invade other people's trial areas, but only within the first 10 levels. However, you cannot interfere with special trials, such as combined trials. This is a function you can possess on the 8th floor, meaning you cannot use it now. He requested an answer to the question he needed to know, which was how to invade someone else's mission space. But the system couldn't answer this question for him at his current floor. This surprised him greatly, because only now did he realize that not every question would receive an answer. But luckily, he didn't lose his question turn from the previous query, and now he wanted to try out the best stuff he had. His current inventory included a chest and the shattered shield. He had to use a magic repair box to fix the shield. Very quickly, his shield was restored. Next, he used a cleansing stone as a way to take a bath. While bathing, he felt shy like a young girl. Everything was done, and he found he still had a lot of time, so he wanted to check the trial rankings and see what was hot in the community. At this time, he was ranked 3rd in the leaderboard. This also surprised him a little, because he jumped from rank 16 all the way to rank 3. He thought that meant he had gained the benefits of being in the top ranks. He really wanted to know what he would receive when he reached the 8th floor. The chat board was currently very lively, as they debated killing and looting others. Just reading that much, he already felt everything was chaotic. Just as rumored, an unprecedentedly lawless place. Resistance to adverse effects skill is the most actively traded skill right now. Is it like a double-edged sword? Although its effect of resisting psychological instability is quite good, it also has limitations when used. The user will have to sacrifice a slot to carry that skill and can only use it in a few cases, but I think it's still worth bringing. Suddenly, a question caught his interest. Hey everyone, do you know that the bastard who gave us information on the 4th floor has changed his name to Princess Su-ri? Although it's just competition between fake challengers, are they really planning to gang up and kill him? Han Sung-yoon still remembered that guy was the one who caused trouble on the 4th floor. I remember he was the one who actively made everyone hate each other. He was wondering if he would meet that guy again. He will remember the name Princess Su-ri. Next, he proceeded to the 6th floor. The condition to pass the mission is to capture one of the surrounding stations within the time limit. Before him was a vast ocean with prearranged paths. He looked around and exclaimed, "This time we get to go to the ocean." Although the system announced that everyone had teammates and needed to cooperate with them to complete the trial. However, he waited and waited, but no teammate appeared. Don't tell me they overslept. Before he could finish his sentence, a spear was aimed straight at his head. Han Sung-yoon immediately raised his hand and firmly grasped the spearhead. Along with that, the spear wielder also appeared through a spatial gate. He was very surprised, and his eyes widened as he looked at him. Then he was pulled by him and fell to the ground. He approached him and asked, "Attacking a teammate too? What are you doing?" He glared at Han Sung-yoon. "Damn it, you'll know the reason if you just follow the community board. Killing people is the easiest way to get rewards." Han Sung-yoon was too familiar with this, so he indifferently asked him back, "So killing teammates is fine as long as there's a reward, huh?" He immediately sneered at his question. "You hypocritical bastard. Before you act all righteous, take a look around you." Beside him, only cries for help rang out. "Wait, don't do it, we're teammates. I'm not wrong. If you have to blame someone, blame this trial tower. Hurry up and die so I can get my reward. Traitor, save me." He smirked sinisterly and asked him back, "Now do you understand?" Swords that had not yet entered battle were always raised high to the sky. They just kept slashing and killing each other. But some were not like that. They held hands like true teammates because they believed, at times like these, we should combine our strength. I'm so glad to meet someone who thinks like me. How can such blatant betrayal be acceptable? Truly what idiots. If you don't cooperate, you can't pass the trial. That's right, huh? You should have paid attention too. I'm the type of person who doesn't need teammates. Saying that, he put on a display of flipping a rice paper, surprising everyone. His mouth was smiling and talking, but his hand used a knife to stab his teammate straight. His eyes were completely different now. "If you shake my hand without any guard like that, how can you be a fake challenger?" And yet he was even given the achievement Backstab. On Han Sung-yoon's side, the other guy observed and asked him, "You want that reward too, don't you? So there's no need to be a hypocrite." Seeing that he wasn't looking his way, he gripped his sword tightly, thinking this was a good opportunity. He then lunged towards him with all his might, hoping to end his life here. Han Sung-yoon still didn't turn around, but he could feel the sword tip rushing towards him. He lightly glided past him, then casually picked up his spear and skewered him from behind. He didn't want a gentle death, but insisted on a tragic one. Before he could utter a few last words, all he could think was, "Damn it, how is this possible?" Han Sung-yoon was also gifted the Betrayal achievement by the system. He judged this guy to be too weak. A special trial, huh? A team-based combined trial. Even so, this trial isn't much different from a regular event. But winning an additional high-level skill makes it a pretty good mission. I need to try my best to win this mission. He decided right away, I will try not to kill people senselessly, but if someone gives me a reason, it's a different story. On the other side, another person, he was using a magic shield to protect himself. That magic shield enveloped the entire brick where he stood. Then standing inside, he laughed as if he had won. This trial is only for those who can use water attribute magic like me. Suddenly, something strange caught his attention. It turned out to be Han Sung-yoon parting the water and running towards him at an incredible speed. He flew up in front of his shield. With utmost bewilderment, he asked, "Who is this bastard?" Who it was remained unknown. But for now, his shield was kicked by Han Sung-yoon with immense force. But he, inside, laughed very confidently. "This is a bulletproof magic shield, you bastard." Before he could finish cursing, his face was kicked squarely by Han Sung-yoon with great force. His whole body went flying, to his own astonishment. Then he landed face down on the ground. Han Sung-yoon simultaneously landed beside his corpse, thinking, I might have overdone it a bit, but if I do this, the others who saw him immediately backed off. Is he a master? Then I'll take a different route. Even another guy turned and fled, bestowing upon him the title, Monster Bastard. All those who ran there turned and left. He sat in the middle of the red brick thinking, I can scare off the others. To be honest, I want the reward too, but I don't want to kill people senselessly. The system reminded him to prevent enemies from capturing his point. Remaining time is 10 minutes. He knew he just needed to sit still for another 10 minutes and it would be fine. High-rank fake challengers who didn't return on the 5th floor must have completed the 6th floor as soon as they entered this floor. Most fake challengers here are low rank, so it's quite easy for me. The trial on the 6th floor made him think about many things. Trust no one. Misplaced compassion is a mistake. This was the true lesson to be learned from this trial. Anyone, even a teammate, could be an enemy, even if he spared someone's life to let them go to another point. They would also have to die eventually. The system reported someone entering Han Sung-yoon's point. He turned his head to look and saw a group of 4 people appear. The blonde guy smirked and said, "Impressive. You're wondering why there are 4 people in a 2-person team trial, right?" Han Sung-yoon looked at them and replied, "Looking at you guys, it's pretty obvious. 4 guys teamed up, combining 2 teams to gain an advantage over other teams." He smiled brightly. "That's right, just as you said." Then his evil face appeared, saying, "You should just die, you bastard." The first 2 guys were just waiting for this sentence and flew towards him. Han Sung-yoon also gripped his sword tightly, preparing to block. Another guy standing behind emanated purple energy, shouting, "Hearts in unison." Simultaneously, Han Sung-yoon's heart was also affected. Kim Ji-hyun's pain will be shared with Han Sung-yoon. Without a word, he raised his sword and pierced it through his own hand. Han Sung-yoon was also affected by his power, causing him equally intense pain in his hand. His right hand could no longer hold the sword. Before him was a big, bald, fat guy preparing to punch him in the face. He flew over, carrying a bucket of seawater, and just poured it straight onto him. He was wondering what this guy was doing, pouring seawater on him. After being doused with water, all his stats decreased by 10%. Faced with their bloodlust, he remained very calm. In front of him, that devilish guy was wildly swinging his sword. He coldly stated their plan. "Your plan to neutralize my weapon and reduce my stats isn't bad. But you've made a fatal mistake." Finishing his sentence, he leaped up and grabbed the devilish guy's head, then informed them of the truth. "You've chosen the wrong opponent." He dragged his head and slammed it hard onto the ground, causing the entire area to explode. The remaining 3 guys were all astonished and looked at him. The system praised him for a 1-hit kill, so he simultaneously learned the skill, Contempt for the Weak. The bald guy, seeing this, charged with his sword towards his back, but he had already flown past his sword tip, surprising him. Then he appeared before his eyes, gifting him with a straight kick to the face. Next was another stomp, landing squarely on his shiny bald head. His smile was becoming more and more confident. The 2 remaining guys could only watch as the bald guy's corpse fell to the ground. The blonde guy was now extremely bitter. Han Sung-yoon stood coldly in front of them. The guy next to him asked, "What should we do now? Do we need to attack at the same time?" Suddenly he swung his sword up, then slashed hard at his own leg, causing him to fall to the ground with the intention of injuring his leg as well. Han Sung-yoon was also affected, making him unable to stand firm. He thought irritably, "Just as that guy said, pain is the only thing we both share. Luckily, it doesn't include additional damage, but the problem is my actions will be restricted by the pain." He was in so much pain from the slash that he screamed, "You bastard, are you even human?" The blonde guy ignored his words and continued to stab the sword straight into his stomach. The blonde guy kept fearfully ordering him, "Don't come near me, you bastard. I'll poke holes in this guy if you come any closer." Although it was very painful, he could still move because of his pain-resistant skill. But if this continued, it would be difficult to confront him. Perhaps an idea had sparked in his mind. That was to kill the mage with the synchronized heartbeat. With that thought, he immediately flew towards him, throwing the shield in his remaining hand. That shield decapitated the mage. Immediately, his neck also felt the painful damage. He knelt on the ground, clutching his neck. The blonde guy realized this was his only chance. He hurriedly swung his sword towards him. But Han Sung-yoon had used all his strength to grasp the sword with both hands and block it. He didn't care about his bleeding hands and even told himself, "The feeling of having your throat cut is really intense, isn't it? You're probably curious too, right?" At this moment, he could only bare his teeth and smile in resignation. "I'm screwed." Han Sung-yoon broke his sword with his bare hands. Then he used the sword tip in his hand to cut off his head as well. His eyes were cold and sharp without a hint of hesitation. Just then time ran out. The others cheered in unison. "We're still alive! We did it!" Could it be that someone instigated it, making many people enthusiastic about the killing achievement at the start of the trial? In the end, the winners were those who maintained their teams. And of course, there were also a few exceptions. He looked at his blood-soaked hands and wondered, do I look like a monster to others? The system will give him a reward when he returns to the waiting room, but before that, he had to absorb the souls of those who died here first. Soul summoning had now increased to D rank. He entered the 7th floor waiting room. Before he could even rest, he wanted to see the achievement list. SO rank achievement first regressor, huh? It's definitely not an ordinary achievement. He will look at the details. It was a C rank killing move. Ruthless murderer rank E. Cold-blooded tower climber rank D. It seems he realized he had gained quite a few achievements from killing. And when I get an achievement, it seems I'll be awarded skills, stats, points, and various other rewards. He received a random box. Seeing it, he guessed, this must be the 6th floor trial reward. If it's an item from F to B rank, there's not much to expect. Let's just open it and see, then I'll finish absorbing the souls later. The box was glowing as if it contained treasure. Something shot up from the box. It turned out to be a blue goblin. He stood looking at it, utterly puzzled. Then a smile couldn't help but spread across his lips. What is this? After thinking for a moment, he decided to fly towards it as if wanting to strangle it. But it wasn't easy for him to catch. Wherever he chased, it managed to dodge. After 7749 times of chasing each other around the room, he finally managed to grab its belly. Han Sung-yoon laughed triumphantly. Ha, gotcha! As for this goblin, it was opening its mouth as wide as possible. It then bit his hand decisively without a second thought. He was in so much pain that he felt like his eyes would pop out and he screamed. And so, it successfully jumped down to the floor, escaping his grasp. He started to look like a demon. I was going to let you off because I thought you were cute. But now I'm serious. This time it was wary of him, so it was very difficult for him to catch it. When he flew up to the ceiling, it jumped down. Seeing it below, he immediately jumped down after it. In the end, its speed couldn't match his. He landed a punch straight to its head. Its shiny head looked as if it had just been burned. Then it cracked open and a necklace appeared from inside. The system announced, "You have received a highest rank item from a random box." An iron necklace imbued with the life's work of a skilled blacksmith who had worked with iron his entire life. Han Sung-yoon held it in his hand with great reverence. He gazed at it intently. A forged iron necklace, huh? He decided to try it on and see. The Steel's Blessing effect from the forged iron necklace has been activated. Your skin has adapted to an attribute that can absorb 10% of damage from all physical attacks. Han Sung-yoon was a bit surprised. It increased all sword-related skills by 7% and absorbed 10% of physical damage. Actually, it's even better than most A-rank items. A cheat-like item because it has both offensive and defensive effects. And now, he didn't hesitate much anymore. His mouth curved into a beaming smile as he thought he had hit the jackpot by getting this necklace. As soon as he put the necklace on, he felt something was wrong. You have run out of mana. The Steel's Blessing effect from the forged iron necklace has been deactivated. Just a moment ago he was smiling brightly, but now he frowned. I guess the drawback of this is that it consumes a lot of mana. But he still decided to hide it carefully inside his chest and use it in emergencies. First, he had to accumulate mana. He glanced at the system panel. Should I check out the innate talent that just increased by 1 rank? Suddenly, the system asked if he wanted to challenge the 7th floor of the trial. I'm sure challengers are always given a certain amount of time to rest in the waiting room before entering the next floor of the trial. Clearing the trial faster isn't bad for me, but this also means the waiting time disappears for others, right? He quickly checked the community to see the situation. Everyone there was in the same boat as him. The waiting time had disappeared. They were discussing it very heatedly, mostly cursing the admin. He thought that the disappearance of the waiting time didn't seem to mean much to everyone. It didn't bring any benefit to the pioneers anymore. They only cared about going home. He wondered if it was because most of them were ranked challengers, and the atmosphere was also different from the 6th floor. He pondered, those murderous bastards must have all gone quiet because the next trial is solo play only, so there's no reason for them to draw attention. Those murderous bastards who only see their comrades' lives as tools are definitely my targets. I need to be more careful. With a determined look, he said aloud, I should train a new skill that won't be swayed by any other diverse skills. And now, let's see the soul summoning skill that was upgraded to D rank from the 6th floor. He realized that the basic effect seemed to have changed a bit. Previously, it only increased his stats, but now it could change things like his magic or give him a defensive shield. I was hoping this skill could increase the efficiency of soul absorption, but I still need a defensive skill that can protect my body. Then he threw his sword at the system panel. He wanted to see how good the soul shield was. Even if his hand were to be cut off, the waiting room had a healing effect, so to avoid taking damage, the absorbed souls took the damage. It seemed those souls had been absorbed into his sword. He looked at his hand in surprise. He decided to keep a few souls for now, to use them for defense instead of absorbing them all. He wanted to see his current trial ranking. He had dropped to 4th place, his face clearly showing disappointment. But it wasn't very important. After all he did was to stay in the top 50 to be a pioneer. After watching to his heart's content, he started doing some aerobic exercises because watching too much was boring. He was eagerly looking forward to entering the next trial floor. The objective of the 7th floor was to prove oneself. The place he appeared in seemed to be a basement. He realized this time was very different from the previous trials. Walking straight down the corridor, he couldn't sense any presence. It was so quiet it made him uncomfortable. Finally, a blinding light appeared in front of him. Because it was so sudden, he didn't understand what was happening. The place he appeared in was a sand desert. He needed to prove himself by overcoming fear. This place felt somewhat familiar to him. He stood waiting for something to appear. Giant sand coils began to rise from under the ground. He looked up at it and knew this was the sand golem. This place is going to make me go through the trial tutorial again, which means I need to overcome the 3 trials I've already passed. Honestly, I can easily defeat a sand golem now even with my eyes closed. So is this why they want me to hurry up and go to the 8th floor? But this one was different from the previous ones. It was 3 times larger than the one he had encountered before. The golem clenched its sandy hand. Then it raised it high into the sky, preparing a fighting stance. His face also showed excitement and anticipation, wanting to test its strength. The golem slammed a powerful punch onto the ground, but he managed to dodge it in time. Han Sung-yoon flew up along its arm. Reaching its head, he leaped high into the air. He observed its entire body but felt it was very strange. Because he still couldn't find its core, why? He figured it might have moved the core inside when its body became larger. The monster suddenly swung its arm towards him, catching him off guard and somewhat astonished. At this moment, he was facing its enormous hand. Yet it managed to grab his entire body in its palm. But its hand was gradually cracking. Han Sung-yoon in its palm slashed enthusiastically. He escaped easily. After thinking for a moment, he decided he had to cut it into pieces to find out. Then he ran all over its body, leaving loving slashes. Its body cracked along his slashes. Seeing this, he chuckled inwardly. Knew it. It's no different from cutting sand with a knife. I'll have to find and destroy the golem's core some other way. But this just made the golem angrier. Wasn't that a pain? It raised its fist. Then it slammed it right where he was standing. He ran from there. It continued to raise its leg, wanting to stomp on him. Han Sung-yoon flew up and cursed it. Damn you! This wasn't just about dodging the golem's attacks. If its whole body hit the ground, the surrounding pressure would be too great. Right now, he was running for his life from its pursuit. After running for a while, he stumbled into a sand pit and was buried in it. Only after a moment did he manage to pop his head out and fully emerge. Now a lump of anger appeared on his head as he exclaimed, I'm getting a little ticked off now. He looked at the monster here, at his feet. He continued to stand up as if he had made a decision. Just as it was advancing towards him, his gaze became sharper. Triple step slash. One slash from him split its body into 2 pieces, but it quickly regenerated. He flew up again and continued to slash at its body. He knew he could have shattered it in one blow. Remembering it, he felt a bit annoyed when his trial mission was invaded by a fake challenger. But now he felt grateful to that bastard. Thanks to him, he had gained more combat experience. This damned golem could regenerate its body with sand. He knew he needed to keep shattering it until he found its core. Then he said to it, "Go on, keep regenerating your body, because I will slash and slash. I won't stop slashing until you're completely pulverized." No matter how much he slashed, it kept regenerating its body. He looked at it, frustrated, already sweating profusely. What a persistent bastard. Where the hell is its core? Had he noticed something? Turned out its body was smaller than before. He asked it, "When did you become so small and cute?" Yet it just stared at him. It seemed to understand his words, as its cheeks turned red with embarrassment. I guess the amount of sand making up the golem's body is used as a resource, and that resource can't be infinitely drawn from the surroundings. This explains why the golem got smaller. If this is true, then he appeared like a demon, calling it, "Hey golem, want to lose some weight with me?" It looked at him with a different gaze. Seeing him fly towards it, it also had to prepare a fighting stance. Han Sung-yoon kicked its right arm. Then he continued to slash its body into pieces. Its entire body was shattered to the ground by him. It let out frustrated growls. By now its body was much smaller, and the core on its back was exposed. Han Sung-yoon's eyes lit up as he found what he was looking for. He looked at it and started calculating. Slashing its torso is quite hard because that part is pretty tough. This is quite tiring, but I finally found its core. I just spent about 10 minutes. The time limit for the 7th floor trial is only 40 minutes. I need to deal with this quickly. The golem suddenly raised its fist in front of him. He quickly dodged to the side, avoiding its hand. But he didn't rush to slash it, just watched what it would do. "You got faster after losing weight, huh? Quite interesting. I'd like to play with you longer, but I don't have time." As soon as he finished speaking, he decisively thrust his sword straight into its core. The golem roared in pain. Along with that, its core shattered. At this moment, the golem completely turned into sand, falling onto his hand. Suddenly, a brilliant light appeared behind him. Before being teleported, he remembered the golem's soul. He had to quickly absorb it or he would miss it. But no matter how he tried to hold on, he couldn't reach it. System notification, soul absorption failed. He cursed in frustration. Damn, it's so annoying, my ability. The next trial he arrived at surprised him. He realized this place was the Orc Village from the 2nd floor trial. Just as I thought, this trial is taken from previous floors. He stepped outside. It was still the same ruined landscape from the fire he had caused. He recognized the figures in front of him as orc hunters. On the 2nd floor, I destroyed the Orc Village. Is this what happened afterwards? The hunter orcs looked at their fallen comrades sorrowfully, then at him with eyes full of hatred. They growled, their bodies trembling with anger. Their eyes suddenly turned fiery red like burning coals. Then they roared so loudly they went berserk. This was a phenomenon that occurred when monsters were extremely enraged. A berserk orc is no E rank. I'm really unlucky, he thought. They angrily charged towards him. Han Sung-yoon calmly stood there, waiting for them to charge. He muttered, "Come to think of it, you guys shouldn't show such obvious grief when you lose family." At this moment, he also angrily flew up. At least not in front of me. He flew towards them and simultaneously slashed off one of its arms. Something surprised him even more. Suddenly, that monster knelt at his feet. He glanced at it coldly and asked, "What, does it hurt? You had to watch your family die." Hearing that, it became enraged, opening its fanged mouth as if wanting to swallow him whole. Then, using all its strength, it flew towards him. Han Sung-yoon easily dodged its sword. When he swung his sword in response, the monster's head flew off. This second trial ended so easily. He quickly turned his head, not wanting to delay any longer. It turned out he was rushing to absorb their souls, before the teleportation gate pushed him away. This time it was successful, so he grinned with satisfaction. He was surprised by this trial. It was a complete mess, and the place he arrived at was the ocean. The chase area from the 6th floor. The previous trials were from floors 1 and 2, so I thought this place would be floor 3. Thinking about it, he sighed as if he understood the problem. The tower using that stupid trial for intelligence. It's truly foolish to expect logic from this tower. This time he had to use a healing potion to increase his stamina and magic power. Just as he opened the potion bottle, he downed it all in one gulp. Along with that, his body felt empowered. Holding the glass vial in his hand, he glanced left and right as if afraid someone would see. So he decided to throw the glass vial into the sea, with the intention of polluting this tower. Just as he threw it into the water, a wave surged behind him. The bricks he was standing on were blown into the sky by a waterspout. He glanced back at it, thinking, I only threw one bottle. He immediately had to use acceleration to run before it reached him. While running for his life, he thought, so far, I've completed all the requirements of the trials. This means to pass this trial, I have to find the red chase brick. Until then, I mustn't touch the water. I will move much faster. At least it won't be able to catch up to me much at this speed. While he was thinking, the brick under his feet was blown up by the current, and so he touched the trial's water. All his stats decreased accordingly. Only then did he realize the bricks didn't fly up in order. This is the consequence of thinking the tower would operate logically. At this point, he had to use instant acceleration again. Then he launched himself forward like a rocket. His feet only touched the bricks in midair. While running, he muttered, You think I'll die in a place like this? With his determination, he crossed from one brick to another. The red brick was right in front of him. That was the target he needed to reach. He didn't know if this was the end of this trial yet. As he got closer, the waves grew larger and larger. It erupted fiercely from under the water, and it directly chased him as if it had a soul. Han Sung-yoon had to constantly dodge it. He was determined just a little more. He could touch that brick. But life isn't like a dream. The waterspout behind him slammed straight into his back, sending him flying into the sky. As he endured the pain from the water pressure, and the forged iron necklace was also working its effect. At the same time, he also had to absorb souls, but the water force here could still destroy them. He was sure he would be affected by this blow. The shield protected him from the damage of the recent impact. Han Sung-yoon quickly leaped backwards. He continued to run towards the red brick. That waterspout kept chasing him as usual. The remaining time was... The unique effect of the cloak also ended. Han Sung-yoon grimaced and cursed. Damn it, I'm out of mana. At this moment, he took out something dark red from his hand. Then he put it to his mouth and swallowed it. It turned out to be the soul of the hunter he had just killed. It greatly reinforced his strength. The two waterspouts continued to chase him closely, and he still had to try to run without stopping. Just a little more and he could touch the brick. But surprisingly, the brick under his feet shot up into the sky, blocking his view. He could only gape at it in astonishment. He couldn't say anything more than a curse, damn it. He didn't know if he would make it in time. Still had to try. He directly pierced through the water wave to get inside. When he touched the water, the goblin hunter's soul was also destroyed. His whole body was flying in the air. Looking down below was, to put it mildly, absolutely terrifying. Then his entire body just fell. He himself could only scream, as he could no longer control his body. Fortunately, he landed straight on the red brick. Beside it, everything also shattered. Han Sung-yoon lay on the brick, smoke billowing from him. Before him were 3 waterspouts that still had no intention of letting him go. As he waited for them to come, he looked at them with fearless eyes. The system then announced, You have proven you can overcome fear. And so, the final trial finally ended. He was angry and weary. This damn trial. Next, he turned towards the door. Sitting in the waiting room, still extremely dejected, he felt a little disappointed in himself. He had actually almost failed. It's already this hard at this level. I don't know what the 8th floor trial will be like. Luck won't continue if I don't prepare well. A skill shop, a return point, and even interfloor invasion, all are things I need. But the most important thing is my aura, the benefit that can be gained by becoming a pioneer on all floors. The trial tower gave advice before, which means the aura has special significance behind it. He didn't know which aura to choose, so he wanted to see the descriptions first. After researching, he knew it affected all abilities as well as characteristics. And above all, the trial tower said this was the most suitable aura for him. But he also wanted to see what other auras were like. This aura that anyone could use, he didn't think it was too bad. As for the aura greatly influenced by talent and perseverance, it was too bad. He decided to discard the last one and choose between the remaining two. After racking his brains for a while, the one he chose was Driller. The unique effect of the aura will begin to evolve. The aura is penetrating his body. The selection list is based on the challenger's current abilities. Summoner. Uses absorbed souls. You can summon powerful immortal skeletons. Magic Swordsman. Both swordsmanship and magic will increase, and any related skills will be learned 3 times faster. Creator. Item crafting skill increases, and any related skills will be learned 3 times faster. DIY is the effect of the ruler aura. It's easy to choose. When he clicked on one, his body changed completely. Finally, he had his own aura. He could combine 2 useless skills into 1 new skill. For him, this was absolutely fantastic, and he didn't know which ones to choose to combine. The infrequently used skills were Pressure the Weak and Endless Combat. He decided to combine these 2. A new skill has been created. At that moment, a strange light suddenly emanated from the system, startling Han Sung-yoon. The system then displayed a notification. A new skill has been created. Skill, Powerful. Proficiency, 0%. Effect, can penetrate any restriction or hindrance created by skills or innate abilities. However, your mana level must be higher than the controller's for it to be effective. Reading this information made Han Sung-yoon exclaim in surprise, "Huh, this is what I got? I thought if I was lucky, I'd at least get an E-rank skill." Han Sung-yoon thought to himself. The system displayed a notification, but it gave out a D-rank skill. "This skill is insane," he said, then laughed excitedly. To try again, Han Sung-yoon tapped the system on the screen. The system continued to display a notification. "Open your skill list. Please select the skills you want to combine. Marksman's Insight, F. Fire Resistance, F. You have selected these 2 skills." Immediately after, he pressed Agree on the notification to combine them. After the skill combination successful notification, a strange light immediately radiated from the system. "Oh, I wonder what I'll get this time." Han Sung-yoon couldn't help but wonder with anticipation. Skill, Enhanced Eyes, E has been created. Enhanced Eyes, E. Proficiency, 0%. Effect, ability to see through even in environments with obstructed vision is enhanced. Han Sung-yoon looked at the system in surprise and exclaimed, "Hey, this time it only upgraded by 1 rank. Just that?" He couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Pressure the Weak, F. Endless Combat, F. The result of combining Pressure the Weak and Endless Combat was quite good because of their compatibility, so that means Marksman's Insight and Fire Resistance are not compatible. Han Sung-yoon looked at the 2 skills, Marksman's Insight, F, and Fire Resistance, F, then sighed to himself. You can tell they don't go well together. I guess that's the reason. Han Sung-yoon threw himself onto the bed looking tired. Also, the glorious reward for continuously being a pioneer. I feel it's a bit strange. Han Sung-yoon suddenly felt a bit suspicious. Is it really because of my hard work or just because I was lucky? He thought to himself. Han Sung-yoon suddenly fell silent. He sat bolt upright. Forget it, for now let's check the rewards. Graceful as the Wind, A. Proficiency, 0%. Effect, increases movement speed by 10% as the skill name declares. This effect can stack 7 times. When the maximum stack is reached, the skill cooldown is 1 day. Han Sung-yoon read the information on the system. Something seemed to have caught his attention. Total movement speed increased by 10%? That's awesome. He continued to read the information. Effect, increases movement speed by 10% as the skill name declares. This effect can stack 7 times. When the maximum stack is reached, the skill cooldown is 1 day. I can stack it up to 7 times? Han Sung-yoon exclaimed in surprise. He suddenly understood something and exclaimed, So that means... And this skill doesn't cost mana. It can be said that Graceful as the Wind has almost no weaknesses. Han Sung-yoon looked at the system screen looking excited. Also, he tapped on the item with a shoe icon and calmly put on the shoes. Acceleration Boots, C. Attack speed plus 30%, movement speed plus 5%. The boots are decorated with small wings made from mechanical magic. Movement will gradually accelerate until a certain speed is reached. The system then displayed information about the shoes. Han Sung-yoon looked at the shoes he was wearing and couldn't help but feel delighted. Hehe, I like that all the floor rewards are related to speed. You have entered the skill shop. A list of skills you can purchase is being displayed. A list appeared immediately after. Petrify, D. Immobilize, E. Monster Hide, F. Weapon Enchant, E. Instant Acceleration, D. Mana Sense, D. Mana Shield, D. Vision Enhancement, F. I can't believe the skills sold in the shop are so crappy, Han Sung-yoon said, then sighed. And quite expensive, too. Instant Acceleration skill costs 8,000 points? So expensive. He pointed at the prices of the skills on the screen, sighing and continuously shaking his head in dissatisfaction. But I still need magic-related skills, he said, then tapped on a skill. The system immediately announced, you have purchased Mana Sense, D. 15,000 points have been deducted. You have purchased Magic Resistance, D. 12,000 points have been deducted. Magic Resistance, D. Proficiency, 0%. Your body partially resists external magic. If the user does not have the Mana Sense skill, the effect will rapidly decrease. Looking at the skill displayed on the screen, he mused, if I have this skill, I'll be able to guard against being affected by skills like concentric like before. Mana Sense, D. Proficiency, 0%. Mana in your body will form a perimeter around you and enhance mana sensing efficiency. Immediately after the system's announcement, a red magical energy enveloped his body. Even Han Sung-yoon's eyes gradually changed. Mana sense is being engraved into the user's body. That magical energy seemed to emit an increasingly hot light, making Han Sung-yoon exclaim, "It feels like I'm being burned." Soon after, that magical light slowly merged with Han Sung-yoon's body, creating a gust of wind that made everything around seem to want to fly up. As soon as the light completely merged into his body, everything returned to normal. He slowly stepped down to the ground and remarked, "My body feels light." Han Sung-yoon looked at his body, which had now returned to its original state. He calmly walked away into the distance. It seemed he had sensed something unusual. Suddenly, an unexpected light flashed, causing him to exclaim in surprise, "Oh, could it be that after learning those skills, it also helped increase my physical strength?" Han Sung-yoon looked at the crushed floor and remarked, "Guess I got a good deal." He couldn't help but laugh excitedly. At this moment, the system displayed a notification. You can use necromancy to awaken a nearby dead person. At this time, the outcome of the awakened being will be proportional to the quality and quantity of souls used. After reading this information, he couldn't help but wonder, I'm quite curious about this skill of awakening the dead. But using it in the arena, he said, then turned off the system screen. Han Sung-yoon took a deep breath and then sighed. Now it's time to decide, he thought to himself. Should I directly challenge the next trial or return to Earth? Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone's phone was displaying party recruitment information. Emergency gate appeared at the Great Disaster Memorial Plaza, looking for 1 tank, 1 D rank or higher healer. Hunters recruited, 0. You have no members. Looking at the unchanging phone screen, he fumed, Damn it, why can't I find any members? Suddenly, someone appeared right in front of him, startling him into looking up. 3 burly strangers appeared. The fat one in the lead spoke up. Still looking for members to join? Why don't you give us your gate entry pass? He offered, eyeing the pass. The entry pass will be revoked if you don't enter the gate within a certain time, he said, his eyes turning sly as he looked at him. So why don't you just withdraw the money and hand it over? Seeing the appearance of these 3, he didn't seem very happy. He looked at them and sighed. He's here again, so troublesome. I already told you before I have no intention of handing it over. Before he could finish his sentence, the fat man immediately interrupted, not letting him continue. You damn brat, Tisk. Why do you think you still haven't received any party requests when there are plenty of hunters around here? Looks like I'll have to be the bad guy again. He looked at him contemptuously, but as he said, there were many hunters around, yet no one offered to join his team. "Let me be blunt," he said, then looked straight at him with arrogant eyes and a disdainful tone. "You're just E rank. Who would want to team up with trash like you?" The man's words made him stare at him, stunned. "That hurts, but he's right." His companions also chimed in with harsh words, then laughed scornfully. "Does your group still have room?" While they were teasing him, someone suddenly spoke up from a distance, asking, which surprised them. "I am Han Sung-yoon, a C-rank hunter," he said, then showed them the card in his hand to prove his strength. "Am I qualified enough?" He looked straight at them with a steady gaze and asked. "Ah, yes, of course," the man said, immediately standing up. "Hey, bro." Suddenly the fat guy slapped Han Sung-yoon on the shoulder and said seriously, "Can't you see everyone's been waiting? Are you blind?" Hearing this, he sneered. "If you're annoyed, you should have joined Lee Chae-won's group," he said bluntly. The fat guy heard this and roared in fury. What? You want to die?" Before he could finish, Han Sung-yoon continued, "Oh, and one more thing." At this moment, a magical aura seemed to radiate from Han Sung-yoon, showing he was extremely furious. The fat guy, seeing the situation wasn't good, became scared and immediately removed his hand. How is his aura so strong? He looked at Han Sung-yoon, exclaiming in surprise, "Could he also be C-rank like me?" "Look at that overwhelming aura," one of the fat guy's underlings exclaimed excitedly. "As expected of our boss," the other one also said with delight. Hearing his underlings, he turned to look at them and thought, "Not me, you idiots." The guy knew he was being overwhelmed in this situation. To save face, he immediately made an excuse to slip away and avoid embarrassment. "Since people from the association are coming, I'll let it slide this time," the guy said, a little embarrassed. "You should consider yourself lucky. Let's go," he said, then immediately turned around, feigning urgency, which slightly surprised his two underlings. Why did you—" "It just started," the man behind him said, scratching his head in confusion. "Hunter Lee Chae-won," Han Sung-yoon suddenly spoke. "Looking at the current situation, it seems no one else wants to join this party. Shall we go in?" he suggested. Chae-won was very surprised to hear that. "Just the two of us?" his face full of questions. Soon after, the two of them passed through the space gate and went straight inside. Jae-won looked around, very surprised but still worried and confused. "I can't believe we actually went in." Han Sung-yoon, seeing his slightly agitated state, reassured him. "Don't worry too much. I can handle most of the monsters in a D-rank dungeon." He was even more surprised to hear that. "Mr. Han Sung-yoon, it seems this is your first time entering a dungeon?" he asked. Han Sung-yoon thought for a moment, then replied, "Yes." He thought to himself, "Because the trial tower isn't a dungeon. What I'm about to say might be a bit impolite since we've just met, but clearing a dungeon is a matter of life and death. I think I need to make this clear," he suddenly said seriously. "Between an E-rank hunter and a C-rank hunter, who do you think has a higher chance of dying?" he asked. Han Sung-yoon remained silent. Most people think low-rank hunters like E-rank are more likely to die, but in reality, it's the C-rank hunters, he continued, his eyes showing certainty. Because E-rank hunters know they are weak, so they are always overly cautious, while C-rank hunters are too confident. For that reason, their mortality rate is often higher. It's like driving. The accident rate increases if you're overconfident. Dungeons are much more dangerous than you think. His voice suddenly dropped. "And now we're here without a tank or a healer, so I'm even more worried about your overconfidence," he continued. Han Sung-yoon listened, then after a moment agreed, "Yes, you're right." Jae-won seriously suggested, "Although I'm only an E-rank hunter, I have quite a bit of experience with dungeons, so let me lead the team, okay?" Han Sung-yoon heard this, looked at him silently and thought, "Even though I want to lead." "All right, let's do that," he said. Hearing this, the man immediately bowed deeply in gratitude. "Thank you for your consideration. Please don't be upset. This is all for our safety." "Now let's set off," Han Sung-yoon thought. "For now, I'll trust him." In the dark, cold cave, a giant monster suddenly appeared, its hand holding a sharp weapon. "Lizard Man," Che-Wan told him. "They are famous for their skills and weapon proficiency." He looked at the monster, his eyes clearly showing fear. "This is not good. Let me provoke it. When it focuses on me, I want you to aim for its opening." He gripped his sword firmly and suggested. Han Sung-yoon immediately complied. "Okay. I want to see how experienced hunters handle things," he thought. The monster suddenly roared and attacked Che-Wan. He shouted loudly, his eyes incredibly determined. He continuously swung his sword towards the monster, even though the distance between him and the monster was still very far. His sword continuously slashed through the air, having no impact on the monster whatsoever. The monster also didn't understand what was happening and uttered a sound. Che-Wan continuously drew his sword and slashed as if attacking the monster. Seeing this action made Han Sung-yoon exclaim in astonishment. "Don't tell me. They're having a staring contest?" he thought, standing there dumbfounded, watching the man flail his arms and legs in the air while the monster hadn't made a move. "I only have 3 days because this return to Earth is temporary. I don't want to waste time on a lizard man near the dungeon entrance." Watching the pointless battle before him made Han Sung-yoon a bit impatient. He approached them. "Let me take it down." Then he immediately advanced towards the monster despite the other man's attempt to stop him. "Wait, hold on, it's dangerous." Instant acceleration. Han Sung-yoon used the magic skill and fast as an arrow, shot straight towards the lizardman. In just a moment he had slashed through its body. Because his speed was too fast, the monster couldn't dodge in time and was immediately hit. Seeing his speed and the scene right before his eyes made the other man exclaim in astonishment. "I interfered because I was in a hurry, so I hope you understand." Han Sung-yoon turned back and calmly explained to him. I get it. I get it. That should be fine, too." Che-Wan looked at the blood-soaked corpse of the lizard man on the ground and stammered his reply, seemingly still not having recovered from the shock. Han Sung-yoon continued to ask, "And I have a suggestion. May I voice it?" Seemingly very impressed by Han Sung-yoon at this point, he nodded repeatedly, immediately listening. Of course, you can say anything." He didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. "I hope to lead the team from now on." He pointed to himself and made the suggestion. Just then a group of lizardmen roared from deep within the cave and immediately charged out. Han Sung-yoon turned back, rushed towards them, and attacked swiftly. One by one they were quickly taken down by him. The monsters continued to attack, closely following him. As soon as they charged in to attack Han Sung-yoon, he immediately jumped into the air, performing a beautiful somersault. Han Sung-yoon jumped down from above and used his sword to pierce through the monster, giving it no time to react. Che-Wan, witnessing everything, was so surprised he was speechless. "This is a one-sided massacre," he exclaimed. He watched Han Sung-yoon fight and marveled. A monster rushed forward and clawed at Han Sung-yoon, but he quickly jumped up, making it attack its own comrade. The sound of Han Sung-yoon's sword slashes echoed continuously. After just a short while, Han Sung-yoon had easily defeated all of them. "I might even be witnessing," he gasped in amazement, "the battle of a super rookie." Meanwhile, after Han Sung-yoon had finished annihilating the last monster, he used his sword to pierce straight through the chest of a lizard man. Han Sung-yoon gently took out a glowing green stone from its chest. At this moment, the system immediately displayed a notification. Core D. Mana core taken from the heart of a lizard man, very useful in alchemy or crafting. Han Sung-yoon threw the stone into Che-Wan's backpack, which was already filled with similar stones. "Sorry I couldn't help with anything other than carrying things," he said, looking at him, seemingly feeling very guilty at that moment. "Based on our spoils here, there's almost nothing left. As for the loot..." As Han Sung-yoon was talking to him, suddenly something rushed towards him at great speed. A lizardman suddenly rushed out from deep within the cave. Han Sung-yoon seemed to sense its appearance and just tilted his head slightly to avoid the monster's attack. He immediately turned around, his eyes determined, and counterattacked the lizard man. Han Sung-yoon delivered a powerful blow towards it, instantly sending the monster flying upwards, Its entire body slammed straight into the cave ceiling. Han Sung-yoon looked at the immobilized monster, his expression unchanged. Meanwhile, the other man was utterly astonished by Han Sung-yoon's attacks. He also showed some fear because Han Sung-yoon's attack had caused the cave ceiling to shake, making stones fall continuously. He uttered, "Ak!" Looking at the scene around him, he couldn't help but be amazed. The corpses of monsters lay scattered on the ground along with their blood. Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, "I'll absorb the souls while pretending to yawn." He then opened his mouth, pretending to yawn, and immediately after, souls were continuously absorbed by him. It seems it will be very difficult to increase proficiency with D-rank monsters now, Han Sung-yoon lamented. Soon after, a mysterious portal immediately opened before their eyes. He said in surprise, "We actually made it to the boss room with just the two of us?" Han Sung-yoon looked at the door, also surprised. "Oh, so this is the boss room door. I didn't expect I'd get to challenge a boss in. No, clearing half the dungeon is already a success," he exclaimed with great excitement. "But with this guy, clearing the entire dungeon is entirely possible." He looked at Han Sung-yoon's back and marveled. He suddenly turned back and said, So I want to enter the boss room. What about you?" Hearing this, the other man replied, "Of course, but don't you need to rest?" He replied, "No, I'm fine." "Then let's go," he said, and both of them immediately stepped into the portal. As soon as they stepped inside, they were faced with a giant lizardman. Its entire body seemed to be covered in sharp spikes, its eyes fiercely staring at them. "As expected, it's the Lizard King," Han Sung-yoon remarked. Do you have a plan?" the man behind him asked. Han Sung-yoon didn't answer his question but said, "You wait here." Hearing this, the man was surprised and tried to stop him. "Well, what? Wait, hold on. Don't you have a plan or something?" The lizardman charged straight at Han Sung-yoon to attack. He looked at it utterly astonished. With just a few leaps into the air, the monster easily approached him. But Han Sung-yoon quickly jumped up to avoid its attack. Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, "Its speed is incredibly fast, not at all fitting for its size." But his eyes immediately changed, becoming determined as he looked at it. In an instant, Han Sung-yoon disappeared and then suddenly reappeared behind the monster. His speed was such that it couldn't detect him. "It's not like I can't keep up," Han Sung-yoon thought, then pointed his sword straight at the monster. But something unexpected happened that he couldn't react to. The lizardman, despite not turning around to see his position and fighting speed, was still able to hit him with its tail. Jiwon, seeing this, couldn't help but shout in worry, "Mr. Han Sung-yoon." From within the pile of rocks covering Han Sung-yoon, he kicked a boulder away. At this moment, the system displayed a notification. Soul has absorbed user's damage. Han Sung-yoon slowly walked towards the merman, his eyes filled with fury, an aura constantly radiating from him. "That's right. It has to be at least like this for me to properly test out my skills," Han Sung-yoon said, then laughed excitedly. Seeing him still healthy, the other man sighed in relief, his limbs still trembling. "Phew, I thought you were about to die." The lizard man also silently watched his every move. Han Sung-yoon walked calmly and said, "But your throne is ruined. Why do I feel like this is a bad omen?" The monster at this moment seemed extremely angry. It roared, and an aura enveloped it. The lizardmen looked up and roared as if releasing some kind of energy. The system displayed a notification. Notification. Slow movement skill has been activated. All movements will be slowed by 25%. Powerful breakthrough skill has been activated. The player has double the amount of magical energy as the user of the slow movement skill. All slowing effects on movement have been nullified. Seeing that his magic had no effect on the opponent, made the monster exclaim in surprise. Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, "I was a bit unsure because it was a skill created from combination, but it works pretty well." Seemingly having sensed that the opponent was not easy to deal with, the monster became even more wary. At this moment, someone's moans were suddenly heard. "I can't control my body." Chae-won was now completely affected by the magic. He collapsed to the ground. "Mr. Han Sung-yoon, help me!" He looked up at him with pleading eyes. Suddenly, the monster seemed to have a plan. "Huh? Wait, he said. Right at this moment, the lizard man immediately charged towards Chae-won. Hey, you damn lizard, your opponent is me! Han Sung-yoon shouted loudly, trying to attract its attention. He leaped into the air to keep up with the monster. Damn it, I'm too far away, he said angrily. The monster was getting closer to the man with each moment. It raised its sword, preparing to finish him off. Ah! Suddenly, Han Sung-yoon remembered something. His eyes changed as he used magic, summoned from the dead. Just as the lizard man was about to attack, human skeletons suddenly appeared, standing in front of the man. Those skeleton soldiers immediately attacked the monster. But to the giant lizardmen, they were just small fry that it could quickly dispose of. Han Sung-yoon didn't exclaim. Of course, they're not strong enough, but in the second I created... Just when the monster wasn't paying attention, Han Sung-yoon quickly chopped it into pieces, making it scream in pain. He landed gently and remarked, I saved him. The monster screamed in pain. At the same time, the system also displayed a notification. Dungeon boss Lizard King has been defeated. The next dungeon boss will appear in 14 days. Your stats have increased significantly from absorbing the Lizard King's soul. Strength +1, agility +1, stamina +1, strength +4, stamina +5. You have absorbed all of the Lizard King's skills. Skill, Spirit Eye, D. Proficiency 0%. Effect. In battle, you will be able to see the opponent's invisible attacks. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man was yawning widely. Other than 3 gates opening at the same time, nothing special happened. How boring, the manager said, looking dejected. Hey, nothing noteworthy happened, right? He turned and asked his subordinates. One of them replied, That's right, nothing at all, Captain. Hearing this, he thought to himself, normally, when the Pioneer Hunter team leaves after clearing, a part of the association's clearing team will arrive soon after and finish by defeating the boss. I'm from the same association, so why doesn't my team get any assignments? That damn clearing team, I'm so jealous. The manager kept complaining. If the clearing team sweeps the gate in a single go, my management team will get a bonus, hehe. Suddenly he became very excited, imagining a bright future. Suddenly he remembered something else. He thought to himself again, that's only possible if they have an A-rank hunter. If there's such a high-level hunter here, that would be insane. At this moment, a magic gate opened, and Han Sung-yoon along with Chae-won stepped out. A subordinate staff member shouted, Pioneer Team, 3rd gate has completed the clearing and is out. Hearing this, he turned around in surprise and asked, It's done already? What? Only 2 people cleared this dungeon? Then they probably came out after clearing 1 entrance, he remarked. Huh? Suddenly something made him look surprised. The magic gate behind the 2 of them suddenly changed. Huh? The gate's color turning gray means the boss room has been cleared. His face suddenly lit up, looking radiant. He hurriedly ran towards Han Sung-yoon. Is it true that the gate clearing is complete? He asked frantically. Excuse me, but who are you to ask me like that? Han Sung-yoon was a bit surprised by a stranger suddenly asking him this. Please forgive my rudeness. I am the person in charge of the gate that suddenly appeared in this park. The manager quickly straightened his clothes and introduced himself. Captain of the Hunter Association's gate management team, Shin Woo-jin. Did you come here to buy the ownership of the gate? Chae-won, standing behind, heard this and asked. Hearing this, he replied, Yes, we want to make an offer to you 2. Then that's not something I can decide. Hearing him say that, Woo-jin asked in surprise, What? Hunter Han Sung-yoon cleared this dungeon alone, he replied nonchalantly. Hearing him say that made Woo-jin extremely astonished. If he did it all alone, then he must be an A-rank hunter, he exclaimed, his face full of astonishment. Han Sung-yoon heard this and calmly replied, No, I'm a C-rank hunter. That's not important right now, so why don't we get to the main point? How much do you want for the gate ownership? Han Sung-yoon got straight to the point. He thought to himself, if I reveal I'm from the trial tower, it will only be more troublesome. Woo-jin heard this, thought for a moment, then replied, Ahem. If you want me to be frank, the management team wants to buy it for 1.2 billion won. Hearing such a large sum made Han Sung-yoon exclaim in utter surprise, 1.2 billion? Meanwhile, elsewhere, a thick, heavy stack of documents was dropped with a thud onto a desk. Duyon sighed wearily. Phew, so tired. After returning from the tower, I've been working non-stop. Suddenly the phone rang. She picked up the phone, wondering, who's calling at this hour? As she looked at the phone screen, some information seemed to make her exclaim in surprise. Huh? Suddenly, something behind her caught her attention. She turned to look at the board behind her. Management Team for Trial Tower Challengers, Team Leader Lee Ha-yeon. I'm sure this will bring innovation to the council, she thought. The superiors made the decision, so it became such a big deal. Although the challengers are still in hiding, I didn't think finding them would be this difficult. Ha-yeon sighed, looking weary and remarking, I couldn't even recruit 10 people. And moreover, the ones I've found are all challengers who chose easy difficulty in the trial tower. This isn't enough to satisfy my superiors. Come to think of it, I wonder what that person is doing. Ha-yeon looked down at the urban area through the transparent glass window and mused. A guy so strong it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he cleared the 4th floor by himself. Han Sung-yoon. I should have made him an offer back then. She placed a hand on the glass, unable to hide her disappointment and regret. Just then, the phone suddenly rang, interrupting her thoughts. She looked at the phone screen, wondering, who's calling at this hour, huh? The information on the phone screen seemed to make her exclaim in utter surprise. A text message appeared. Han Sung-yoon, the person you met on floor 4. Lee Ha-yeon, if you've returned. Can we meet for a bit? Meanwhile, on Han Sung-yoon's side, he was checking his account balance. Main account, savings deposit account, 1,291,600,001. I've earned nearly 1.3 billion. Han Sung-yoon looked at the balance on the screen, exclaiming in surprise, It's like a dream. This is really great, he laughed out loud, satisfied. Should I buy a house? Just then, the shop's doorbell suddenly rang. Ha-yeon rushed into the shop, looking around to find him. Her face showed she seemed to be very much looking forward to seeing him. Ms. Lee Ha-yeon, over here. Han Sung-yoon saw her and waved. Ha-yeon, seeing him call her, replied joyfully, Ah, Mr. Han Sung-yoon. She approached his table, looking a bit tired. Did she run here? Seeing her attire and attitude made Han Sung-yoon remark in surprise. Could you spare a moment of your time? Before he could finish, Ha-yeon sat down in the chair opposite him, her eyes sharp, looking somewhat angry as she said, Mr. Han Sung-yoon, you didn't even reply to my messages. Do you know how long I've waited for your message? She looked at him seriously and said. Hearing Ha-yeon say that made Han Sung-yoon surprised and then embarrassed, causing his face to turn bright red. I apologize about the message. I'm not interested in things like that, so it seems I missed your message. He looked at her and replied, So please order me a coffee and a cheesecake, she immediately suggested cheerfully. Han Sung-yoon was a bit surprised that she wasn't angry, but immediately complied with her request. Okay, of course. A moment later, her coffee was brought out. Have you stopped climbing the trial tower? She asked curiously. He calmly replied, No, I'm planning to resume. Actually, I contacted you because I have something to ask. Ha-yeon heard this and couldn't help but be curious. I need to join a guild, Han Sung-yoon bluntly proposed. A place that will allow me to enter the trial tower and raid dungeons at will. My conditions are 1. The right to refuse summons from the guild. 2. The guild does not interfere with my activities inside the tower. 3. The right to use the guild's dungeons whenever I want. Do you know any guild that can agree to these conditions? He looked at her seriously and asked. Seeing her just looking without answering, Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, Has the atmosphere changed? Did I ask for too much? Mr. Han Sung-yoon, she suddenly spoke, the conditions you've stated are impossible to meet. If you look at it from the guild's perspective, they wouldn't gain anything from you at all. She answered decisively. I see. It seems I've asked for too much, he lamented. Suddenly she grabbed his hand. Ha-yeon stood up, gripped his hand tightly and looked straight into his eyes, affirming. But please join my White-Silver Guild. I will make your impossible conditions possible. At this point, Han Sung-yoon had left the cafe and was seriously thinking about what she had proposed. Ignoring the surrounding car horns, Han Sung-yoon lay quietly on the roof of a large bus, silently recalling her request. Raiding dungeons, selling items, and even joining a guild. I've been working efficiently, and yesterday Han Sung-yoon mused with satisfaction. Hey, although to join the guild there's one more thing I have to do. Han Sung-yoon suddenly thought seriously. Clear a C-rank dungeon by myself. You need to accomplish that for my superiors to accept your requests. Han Sung-yoon recalled Ha Yan's demand. The freedom to use the guild's dungeons cannot be granted to just anyone. That means only a select few can benefit from the White-Silver Guild's dungeons. You have to be a rising star, or a challenger with proven abilities that the guild highly anticipates. Han Sung-yoon, hearing that, seriously replied to her, Please prepare a C-rank dungeon for me to clear by myself. Han Sung-yoon looked at the city before him and mused. I'll run from here to there to warm up. He placed one hand on the bus roof. Then Han Sung-yoon stood up in a ready stance. In a flash, he shot off towards the city like an arrow. His speed was so fast it created a terribly strong gust of wind. People around didn't even notice his presence. Meanwhile, at a cave with a mysterious door and 2 guards standing outside, Ha Yan slowly approached the 2 guards and said, Hello, I'm here to book a raid on this dungeon in an hour. Hearing this, one of the guards immediately came over and jotted down her information on a board. Your team leader Lee Ha-yeon of the White-Silver Guild, right? She also took out her name card and showed it to him. There's still plenty of time, so you can sit under this tent for a bit. He led her to a tent, pointed, and said. She heard and replied, Yes, thank you. Before she could even sit down, there was a sound from behind her. It was Han Sung-yoon, who had just rushed here like an arrow. Seeing her, he said, Ha-yeon, there you are. His incredible running speed had created a strong gust of wind. The wind was so strong that the tent and furniture were blown away. Even the 2 attendants were stunned and shouted loudly. I apologize. I ran so fast I caused a shockwave. He suddenly understood the situation, apologized profusely, and rearranged the furniture. Ha-yeon also seemed a bit flustered. Did he really create such a strong wind just by running? She marveled inwardly, but outwardly tried to remain calm. You're early, Han Sung-yoon. The staff, meanwhile, were utterly astonished. Is he really human? She marveled. Han Sung-yoon heard this and replied, I had nothing else to do, so. Ha-yeon pointed to the gate before them and explained, I've completed the legal procedures. Please let me know when you're ready. Han Sung-yoon heard this and calmly replied, I don't mind if we start right now. Well then, we'll begin the raid on this dungeon for you to prove your abilities. Han Sung-yoon didn't hesitate and immediately stepped through the gate. Before them was a vast, sprawling rice field. A rice field? Han Sung-yoon asked in surprise. Lee Ha-yeon, please signal me immediately if you think you're in danger. He suddenly turned back and said. Ha-yeon heard and immediately replied, I'm fine. I'm wearing an artifact the guild gave me. It's the Queen A's necklace. It's an item capable of creating a shield, and although it's not very strong, it also has an invisibility feature. She calmly explained. Besides, if monsters notice me, I can evade them on my own, I think, so I should stay a bit further away. Hearing her, he agreed. Sounds good. Thanks to that, I'll be able to fight without worry, he said, then decisively walked straight ahead. Right then, the system first displayed a notification. Spirit Eye skill has been activated. A mysterious purple magical aura suddenly emanated from him, causing him to exclaim in surprise, Is this the skill I absorbed from the Dragon God King? Just then, 3 other invisible sources of mana, which Han Sung-yoon could still sense, approached him. He became excited and exclaimed, Oh, I can sense invisible enemies. This is the power of the Spirit Eye. The 3 mysterious monsters charged straight towards Han Sung-yoon. Just as they leaped to attack Han Sung-yoon, he nimbly jumped into the air to avoid their attack. The 3 monsters were now revealed with their sharp teeth, fierce eyes, and also sharp claws to attack enemies. Seeing their sudden appearance, Ha-yeon couldn't help but be surprised. These are deadly poison monsters from a C-rank dungeon. Mr. Han Sung-yoon, be careful. She saw the situation was becoming unstable and shouted to him, "This is an abnormal dungeon." While she was extremely panicked, he showed no worry at all. Quick as lightning, he continuously attacked the monsters, leaving them no time to react. In an instant, all 3 monsters were killed by him, their blood splattering everywhere, while Han Sung-yoon landed gently on the ground. Impossible, this isn't normal. Witnessing the scene before her, Ha Yeon couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. The atmosphere of the fierce, tense, and unbalanced battle between Han Sung-yoon and a terrifying horde of dinosaur-like monsters charging out from their den on the wing. Fast Ricefield. He was delivering flying kicks and aerial punches, along with sky-rending slashes in the brawl that had torn those monsters to pieces. Han Sung-yoon was highly focused, using all his strength to fight the monsters, magical light emanating from his long saber along with incredibly skilled techniques. Suddenly he paused with a puzzled look, then realized, lightning flash activates so rarely that I forgot I even possessed it. Just then, a leading alpha dinosaur, incredibly enraged with terrifyingly sharp fangs, charged at him like a rocket, its power expressed in a deafening roar. He seemed to know the monster's movements clearly and could dodge it easily. He didn't flinch but remained calm and firmly grasped the monster's tail with one hand. With some extraordinary strength, he lifted the monster into the air. He forcefully slammed the monster to the ground, creating a loud noise. Han Sung-yoon stood majestically, exuding an aura of relief and satisfaction with his recent achievement. "I've cleared this place out, Ms. Ha Yeon. You can come over now." Han Sung-yoon looked towards her and waved his hand, calling her. Unbelievable. He managed to clear the boss room in under an hour, and solo at that. She couldn't help but be astonished. What surprises me even more is that this is an abnormal dungeon. Deadly poison demons are a species of monster you cannot underestimate. A single deadly poison demon is one of the monsters that C-rank hunters are usually advised to kill with a party. But to be able to fight such a monster alone so easily. Mr. Han Sung-yoon will grow even stronger, to a level where he can no longer be compared to his current self. Just then, the system suddenly displayed a notification. Thanks to the consumption of all possessed souls, stats have been increased. Strength increased by 4 points, agility increased by 3 points, stamina increased by 4 points, magical power increased by 6 points, endurance increased by 7 points. Han Sung-yoon was currently thinking, if it's only at this level, the boss won't be too dangerous for me. Now I'll enter the boss's room, he said and headed straight for the red magic portal before him. Right now, around the 2 of them was a dark, gloomy cave, devoid of people, with only the sound of the wind whistling through. Han Sung-yoon continued to walk calmly, while Ha Yeon began to suspect this place. She exclaimed, this feels a bit strange. There's no way we can sense the presence of a monster to this extent. Just as she said that, a surge of magic with immense power unexpectedly shot down from above, straight towards the 2 of them. Only when the light was about to hit her did the 2 of them detect the magical energy. Han Sung-yoon sensed the imminent danger right beside them. This was the second form of the giant monster gradually appearing. With its powerful fist, it shot towards Ha Yeon like an arrow. "Danger!" he exclaimed. Just as it was about to reach Ha Yeon, she disappeared. Han Sung-yoon had quickly rushed over and carried her away, narrowly avoiding danger. The monster didn't stay still. It landed its foot on a cliff to gain momentum and stared intently at the 2 of them. Ha Yeon, only then regaining her composure, saw the person who had saved her from danger. Looking at the handsome face before her, she was too surprised to speak. The giant monster, full of rage, opened its mouth wide, creating a magic orb. Immediately after, it launched that magical source straight towards the 2 of them. Seeing the imminent danger, Ha Yeon immediately shouted, pointing at the monster, "Mr. Han Sung-yoon, behind you." A loud explosion immediately occurred, shaking the entire surrounding cave. From within the explosion, Han Sung-yoon, carrying Ha Yeon in his arms, flew up into the air. He landed gently. Han Sung-yoon landed on a nearby tree branch. Ha Yeon still seemed a bit shy, being carried by him, while Han Sung-yoon, now very serious, said, "This is quite dangerous, so I hope you understand that I had to move us to another location. Without your consent, No, I owe you, she said, jumping down. Han Sung-yoon, assessing the situation, replied, Well then, I'll go and deal with this thing. He looked towards the monster below, which was relentlessly searching for the two of them. Do you want me to use a buff skill? She looked at him seriously and asked, We can confirm the skill another time. Hearing that, he decisively replied, No. Han Sung-yoon gripped his sword tightly and slowly flew up into the air. I just need a moment. He seemed extremely confident in his strength. Han Sung-yoon decisively jumped straight down to where the boss monster was standing. As soon as he landed on the ground, the monster immediately saw him. Its eyes became fierce, looking at its prey. Han Sung-yoon also began to use magic, his eyes suddenly changing. Just then, the system suddenly displayed a notification. Instantaneous acceleration skill has been activated. Thanks to the exclusive effect of the C-rank speed boots, temporary acceleration has been enhanced. The boss was also getting into a preparatory attack stance, stomping hard on the ground to gain momentum. The system continuously displayed notifications. Graceful as the wind skill has been activated, all movement speed increased by 70%. Current skill stack progress, 7-7. The giant monster bared its fangs, opened its mouth wide, and began to channel magic towards him. Han Sung-yoon stepped back to gain momentum, then leaped up. His eyes filled with determination as he charged straight at the monster. He suddenly lunged but then veered in a different direction. Seeing this action, the monster couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The giant monster couldn't dodge his attack in time and was immediately struck. Its entire body was slashed into pieces by Han Sung-yoon and scattered everywhere. Just then, the system displayed a notification. Dungeon boss Blue Fire Annihilation Dark Demon has been defeated. The dungeon will be locked in 3 hours. Witnessing the bloody battle before her, Ha-yeon couldn't help but be astonished. Now I'm a bit confused about who the real monster is. She silently looked at him and uttered. Han Sung-yoon then turned to look at the monster, which had been slashed to the point its body parts were scattered everywhere, and mused, Did I cut it into too many pieces? After dealing with the monster, the two of them immediately stepped out of the portal before it closed. Boo, I didn't think you could clear a dungeon like this so quickly, Ha-yeon said, still amazed. You've passed the test, and now you'll be able to use the dungeons owned by the White Silver Guild. Our guild isn't foolish enough to ignore someone like you, Han Sung-yoon. Hearing her say that, he exclaimed in surprise, Oh, that's great then. She suddenly turned her back and said, And though this is a different topic, when you are summoned to the trial tower, the difficulty you choose is not too important. For those who achieved good scores in easy trials, their subsequent trials will gradually become harder. And conversely, for those who choose a difficult level, if your score isn't good, you can switch to an easy level. When you participated under those rules and achieved such absurd growth, despite your ranking being in the top 50 of the tower, it means your difficulty level could be lethal. Hearing her say that, he fell silent, thinking, So it would be better if you were a little more careful. Her face was now flushed. I want to go with you and see your growth through the years. Hearing Ha-yeon say that, Han Sung-yoon seemed to understand something, and his face gradually turned red as well. Later, in the quiet night of another city, Han Sung-yoon sat silently on a building. He calmly bit into an apple, enjoying his dinner. The system then displayed a notification. You will return to the trial tower in 5 minutes. Han Sung-yoon ate and mused. I've been really busy these past 3 days. Suddenly he smiled excitedly. But thanks to that, my stats have increased quite a bit, and at the same time I've gained more confidence. Soon after, the system continued to display a notification. Time is up. You will now return to the trial tower. Just then, a tower-shaped conduit appeared in the sky, descending from above straight towards him. He looked up, smiled with amusement, and exclaimed, I'm going back to the tower. Trial. As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared on the bed in his familiar room. Han Sung-yoon jumped down and walked with confidence. The system suddenly displayed a notification. Do you accept this 8th trial? He accepted immediately without hesitation. Please choose the branch of the trial. Combat Transcription Raid. Seeing the system display a new choice, Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, come to think of it, it did say there would be a branching system. If I want to increase the accuracy of my necromancy, I need to choose the combat option. Saying that, he pressed the combat button. The system displayed a notification. You have chosen combat. Challenger Han Sung-yoon has chosen to focus on combat in all personal trials. You will not be able to change your selection after choosing. He looked at the system and mused, well, I wasn't planning on changing it anyway. It was a notification that suddenly appeared, catching his attention. Challenger Han Sung-yoon possesses the Pioneer ability. Han Sung-yoon appeared quite surprised. The system then continuously displayed notifications. A face-to-face conversation with a manager will begin. Currently searching for a manager specializing in combat. Han Sung-yoon exclaimed in surprise. A manager. Search complete. A conversation with manager Iron-Blooded Tyrant King, an expert in combat, will begin. Just then, Han Sung-yoon was teleported by the system to another place. In just a moment, the place he arrived at was a snow-covered forest, surrounded by swords stuck straight into the ground. Suddenly, the system announced, search complete, then added that the conversation with Administrator Iron-Blooded Tyrant King would begin. Han Sung-yoon was suddenly teleported to a snow-covered land. He fell and landed gently on the ground. Around him were snow-covered swords, teleported from the sky along with him, and stuck straight into the ground. After stabilizing himself, Han Sung-yoon looked around with a puzzled expression, wondering where this was. Just then, the system appeared and informed him that he had entered the Iron Blood world. Following that was the scene of the cold, snowy land with sharp swords stuck straight into the thick snow. He thought to himself, the Iron Blood world? Then to learn more about this deserted and cold place, Han Sung-yoon used his Eye of Truth ability. His eyes suddenly glowed with a mysterious purple color. Immediately, the system announced that his Eye of Truth skill had been activated. The system displayed information about this land. Iron Blood World, Rank 1, a special place where Administrator Iron-Blooded Tyrant King lives. Uninvited guests are not allowed to enter. Han Sung-yoon smiled with an excited expression for the events he was about to face. Although I don't know what this place is like, he thought. Oh, so there are things like this. The system once again appeared, notifying him that Administrator Iron-Blooded Tyrant King felt offended by someone's search. Perhaps his use of the Eye of Truth skill had been detected by the Iron-Blooded Tyrant King, who felt angry. With a surprised expression, Han Sung-yoon read every word on the system panel, astonished. He thought to himself, can an administrator convey emotions through messages? Suddenly, from behind him, a sword under the thick snow began to glow with the color of a red flame, and was gradually being pulled out of the snow. Sensing something unusual, Han Sung-yoon immediately turned around. Once again, Administrator Iron-Blooded Tyrant King conveyed words through the notification bar, saying, stop doing useless things and follow the sword. The sword immediately changed direction and began to move. The system also disappeared. He stood there, stunned and hesitant, not knowing whether to believe it or what to think. Step by step, he walked through the falling snow, the coldness intensifying. The further he walked, the whiter the scenery became. The glowing sword continued to guide him to a place where he didn't know what he would face. His shadow gradually faded from where he started. The sword with the blazing red flame disappeared. With eyes the color of the ocean, he looked up, breathed steadily, and looked ahead. A very large wooden house appeared in a deserted place with snow falling relentlessly thick. It truly made one suspicious. He stood in front of the house looking for a moment. He decided to enter. As soon as he opened the door, Han Sung-yoon was immediately surprised by what he saw. At the same time, the notification bar reappeared and read, Administrator Iron-Blooded Tyrant King is watching you. In the cozy space, a chandelier with flickering flames hung from the ceiling. Below, next to the fireplace, sat a girl with light purple hair that seemed to glow. She wore majestic armor, and her flame-colored eyes looked at him triumphantly. She exclaimed, "You finally arrived." Her legs were crossed in a powerful sitting posture, displaying her status as an administrator. She continued, "Welcome, Pioneer." She looked at him with eyes that were even more clearly red, with a red light in her pupils. She smiled. Truly a beautiful girl. She said, "I am the administrator responsible for conferring with you, iron-blooded tyrant king." Han Sung-yoon had been silently observing the girl from head to toe with a serious expression. He thought to himself, I didn't expect her to be so beautiful, but then... He looked at her again. The administrator also looked at him with a puzzled expression. He thought to himself again, although she's a beautiful girl, in reality she's the Trial Tower administrator. That's right. Her aura was incredibly terrifying, completely different from her beautiful appearance. She clearly exuded a scariness that made even him wary. Lost in his own thoughts, the administrator suddenly appeared right in front of him with a thoughtful expression. He was unconsciously startled by her incredibly fast movement. Her ruby-red eyes were fixed on his handsome face. He was surprised and thought, huh? He followed her with his eyes and thought, how did she? I haven't taken my eyes off her once. The girl reached for a bottle of wine placed on the shelf next to him and said, I was wondering what kind of monster you were, but you look quite normal. He immediately became curious and asked, You know me? Having just taken the wine bottle, she walked back to her original seat, slowly opened the wine bottle and said, Of course, your battles left quite an impression on me. She walked over, holding the wine bottle, and poured a bright yellow liquid into the glass. It flowed continuously from the bottle. He asked again, Have you been watching my Trial Tower ascents until now? She continued pouring and said, I only know the results. After all, observing trials below the 8th floor is impossible. He was immediately surprised by her statement, his eyes filled with suspicion. He thought to himself, huh? Even an administrator like her can't observe them? She swirled the wine in her glass, preparing to enjoy it with a thoughtful expression, her eyes gazing into some distant space. She said, Looking at your expression, you must understand something clearly. Administrators are not as omnipotent as gods. She continued, We do not rule the tower. After saying that, she immediately took a sip of wine. He slowly asked, Then what are you? The administrator, after drinking the wine, replied, Instead, administrators are merely subordinates of the tower, so you don't need to be afraid. She continued, As long as I am a subordinate of the tower, I cannot harm you. He looked at her with a thoughtful expression. There were still too many questions, but he felt somewhat reassured because this girl had said she wouldn't harm him. She glanced at him and continued, Let's put this minor matter aside. Having a personal consultation is a benefit for you. If you're curious about anything, just ask what you want to know. He immediately thought, a benefit. I definitely don't sense any hostility from her. With the outside scene entirely of thickly falling snow, the two of them were in a cozy house conversing. He spoke up. Then, can I know what this personal consultation is? She leaned against the table and answered, A personal consultation, as I said, is a benefit for the pioneer. You can ask any question to the administrator and receive an answer without needing a question ticket. As soon as she finished, Han Sung-yoon immediately seized the opportunity, saying, In that case, he continued, On the 5th floor, I was almost killed by a challenger from another world. He envisioned the image of the challenger in his majestic armor. He continued, How did he get to my floor? Can he invade any dungeon floor? She chuckled with delight and raised her wine glass, looking at it. Well, there's no particular reason, she said. She looked at him, her eyes seeming a little drunk, her gaze truly captivating. She said, When you invade another world's floor, you can not only get rewards from there, but you can also receive a better benefit. She continued to answer, Challengers from other worlds are usually those who have been in the tower for decades. Because of that, once someone defeats them, they will receive a large reward. The space in the house was silent, as if it too was listening to her speak. She added, And the tower of this world will one day merge with the tower of another world. He was surprised and asked, What do you mean? She simply replied, That's what I mean. She continued to explain to him, After 20 floors, there will be more combined trials instead of single trials, meaning you will meet challengers from other worlds. Along with illustrations of single trials in various places, they are in the process of trialing the Earth dimension. Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, It means they are trying to eliminate future rivals early. She placed her wine glass on the table and said, Is that what you wanted to know? He immediately said, I have one last question. What is the trial tower? The air suddenly became silent. The administrator thought silently for a long time. Then she answered, Oh, I'd like to know that too. Han Sung-yoon was stunned and wondered, You're an administrator and you don't know either? She just stared blankly into space. Perhaps his question was the very question she had long wanted to know. She spoke after a moment of silence. Administrators were also once challengers. Those who died after the 14th floor were granted the privilege of resurrection and became administrators. Deep within her fiery red pupils like a burning flame, she looked into some distant space. Perhaps the administrator was recalling her past when she was still a challenger. She recounted her past when she was a challenger. I also wanted to climb to the top of the tower, but I couldn't. Not just me, but all the administrators who died couldn't reach the top. She recalled the moment her body was bloodied and battered, in a chaotic area surrounded by fire and corpses. Her body was covered in blood, unclear whether it was hers or the monster's. Hearing a part of the administrator's past, he clenched his fists and said, So, initially, all administrators were ordinary challengers? Han Sung-yoon sadly bowed his head and said, I was hoping to learn about the top of the tower. As soon as he finished speaking, the administrator's expression suddenly changed. She frowned. She quickly moved towards him, grabbed his neck and slammed him against the door. This action was so fast that he couldn't react in time and could only endure the overwhelming blow. She continued, The top of the tower is not something you can speak of so lightly. As she spoke, she tightened her grip on Han Sung-yoon's neck. Her eyes were now filled with killing intent, no longer the gentle, tipsy girl from before, but an extremely terrifying administrator. Although he was being choked quite hard and still pinned against the door, he showed no signs of fear or apprehension. He remained calm and silent, looking at her as if pondering something to help calm her down. Seeing that calm face, she chuckled lightly and said, You're not surprised at all? Aren't you afraid? He honestly replied to her, You said this consultation was a benefit. I don't feel any murderous intent from you. He slammed his hand against the door and the wood quickly cracked. He continued, Besides, the entire door shattered, swept away by the relentlessly blowing snowy wind, snowflakes flying through the air. She couldn't grab him in time, so he immediately retreated out into the cold, snowy area. The system also opened his sword for him. He continued, I won't be easily attacked by you like that. His eyes also blazed, ready for a fight if it were to happen here. The administrator didn't know what to do. She was surprised by his action, gaping at him as he revealed the ability he had hidden until now. She laughed loudly, her laughter echoing throughout the area. She narrowed her eyes at him, smiling with great interest, and said, This is the first time I've seen someone break an administrator's house. She continued, However, this has convinced me. He looked at her warily, anticipating her next words and actions. Although she had said she wouldn't harm him, nothing was certain. He looked at her with a puzzled expression after her last remark. She looked at him and continued, Challenger Han Sung-yoon. She continued, I want to offer you a master-disciple contract. This time it was he who was surprised by her action and words. He never expected her to make such an offer. Could it be that she had taken a liking to him? The system chimed, You are entering the hall of the 8th floor. While talking to the administrator, he was suddenly teleported again by the system and landed right on a soft bed. Perhaps her words and this system-initiated teleportation left him still dazed by the current situation. He sat up abruptly and said, Exclusive shop. A blue system panel suddenly appeared. On the notification panel, it displayed, Contractor's exclusive shop, Products 1000, skill classification, availability classification, item classification, contractor, iron-blooded tyrant king. He looked at the system panel for a moment and said, "Oh, I really did sign a contract with an administrator." And he thought to himself, "This isn't a dream." He recalled the scene where she used her skill, a glowing piece of paper appearing in her hand, and said, "I can't miss a veteran challenger with such courage." The system asked him, "Will you accept this sponsorship contract?" He pressed the Agree button and the notification continued. "Contract has been executed." Another notification sounded. "The contractor's exclusive shop, where special point products are used, will be created. All stats will be increased by 1 as a reward from the contractor." She laughed cheerfully and said, "This is fun, Pioneer." Then she disappeared with a final word, "I'll see you soon." He then pressed another button on the notification, causing it to display further, "Availability classification of the contractor's exclusive shop is now open." The notification continued. Group classification, list 1-3, available mind like a bedrock C, available iron-blooded soul A, available ice emperor D+. He thought to himself, there are also tiers for available shop items. Is the exclusive availability I got on the 8th floor different from these things? He looked at the notification panel, pondering. He looked at the notification panel and noticed something. He said, "First page, let's see the next page." A notification warned him that he did not have permission to open the second page of the availability list. "You will be able to open the second page in the 10th floor lobby." He looked at the notification and said, "What? So now I can only see 3 availabilities?" Another notification continued to appear. Mind like a bedrock C, price 1,000 products, description. Regardless of the situation, you can still make a rational decision. The duration of emotional effects like anger and hesitation is halved, and combat coordination ability is increased. Next is Iron-Blooded Soul, A, price 6,500 products, description. A soul born from a king without blood and tears. Proficiency of weapon-based skills increased by 2.32 times. All new weapon skills gain 10% proficiency. Next is the Ice Emperor D+ ability. Price 800 products, description. Ability acquired by the rulers of the North. In cold environments, stats will temporarily increase and you will not feel cold. The Mind like a bedrock ability has been purchased. 1,000 products deducted. Price 1,000 products. Description. Regardless of the situation, you can still make a rational decision. He thought to himself, an availability that will allow me to make rational decisions in any situation. Mind like a bedrock. Perhaps it was a wise decision to buy it, as my future journey may involve many challenges requiring quick and accurate decisions. He thought further, instead of being unprepared, it's better to increase my chances of survival. That's right. He himself understood clearly that this item would be of great benefit to him later on. He continued to think, anyway, my dungeon floor can be invaded at any time. Han Sung-yoon didn't hesitate and stepped into the teleportation portal to the 8th floor trial. Whether he liked it or not, he would have to face that trial eventually. The 8th floor trial will begin. Difficulty, hard. The theme of the trial is destruction. Completion condition, defeat the zombie summoning skeleton soldiers. Failure condition, death of the challenger. Reward upon completion, all stats, +2. Penalty for failure, death. He was transported to a land tinged with a purplish-red hue, as if heralding approaching death, dark and gloomy. He looked down with a surprised expression and blurted out, "Ah, what is that?" Below where he stood were countless zombies. He couldn't see them clearly, but they were screaming as if they wanted to kill him immediately. They appeared from a distant place. Perhaps the fortress from which they emerged was where he needed to go. He stood on a rather high cliff, looking down at a chaotic scene with thousands of skulls rushing towards him. Perhaps he himself knew he had to face a lot of zombies, but with this many, how could he ever win? He could only let out a sigh. Why are there so many? Accompanied by the zombie screams that echoed across the land, drowning out his voice. He scanned the area and said, "That's their tactic, overwhelm the enemy with numbers, huh?" In a ready-to-fight stance, Han Sung-yoon defiantly said to the zombies, "Well then, shall we begin?" Below him were countless zombies waiting to kill him, yet he wasn't afraid of anyone, not even this pile of dry bones. He dived down at great speed, gliding from the cliff without a scratch, one foot stomping hard on the ground to create force, leaping into the midst of the horde. An excellent landing, immediately, had wiped out hundreds of nearby zombies. Yet around him, many more zombies continued to advance. Around him, he clearly demonstrated his abundant strength, landing right in the center of the zombie horde without any fear. But since zombies no longer feared death, they weren't afraid of him either. In their hands were swords, knives, sabers, or even anything sharp that could kill him. They counterattacked. The entire horde of zombies rushed towards him, their eye sockets glowing red, displaying a brutal, angry deadliness. Unfortunately, before they could even touch him, they were flung far away from that spot, their body parts scattering. Han Sung-yoon, however, was completely unscathed. He let out a long sigh and said, "I can't even get past this wave of monsters inside." Indeed, even if he destroyed hundreds of zombies, it was just a small fraction in this place full of nothing but zombies. One by one, Han Sung-yoon smashed each skeleton to pieces. They shattered into fragments. As he punched, he said, "But I find these skeleton soldiers too weak." Proficiency increased by 0.08. He said dejectedly, "Only 0.08%? This is really discouraging." His face clearly showed his disappointment at this meager increase, as he had been diligently destroying many groups of skeleton soldiers until now. He kept hitting and punching for who knows how long, as if it were a loop. Fight a bit, then hear the chime of the notification bar. Proficiency has increased by 0.08. Then watch the skeleton soldiers shatter into pieces. This went on for a very long time, and he didn't even know how long it had been. Perhaps the zombies weren't strong, but there were just too many of them. After fighting for so long, he was starting to feel a bit tired. Around him, bones were scattered all over the ground. He said, "I should just forget about increasing my proficiency with this trial. It's not giving much anyway." Suddenly a voice echoed throughout the region. "Who goes there? Which bastard dares to desecrate my sacred land?" The skeleton soldiers also stopped at that voice. It seemed to be a commander or the king of these zombies. He was also startled by this sudden, booming voice. He turned his back to see who had spoken. Sensing where the sound came from, he said, "The voice is coming from over there." Han Sung-yoon understood what he should do now. He shouldn't waste his energy on these weak skeleton soldiers. He immediately used his skill, absorbed the dead. The skeletons he had just smashed came back to life and would now obey his commands. The system also chimed with a notification. "You have possessed and absorbed skeleton soldiers. Number of possessed souls, 130. The skeleton soldiers he possessed began to pick up nearby stones and started throwing them at the heads of the unpossessed skeleton soldiers. Their skulls shattered, small bone fragments flying far. Seeing the scene of them all fighting like that, he was also astonished and said, "I never knew skeleton soldiers could be this useful." Han Sung-yoon excitedly left the battle and said, "Now then, I'll leave this place for these underlings to handle. I'm going to find the boss." So he ignored those weak skeleton soldiers, leaving them to the newly reanimated soldiers he had just summoned. Behind him, skeletons were scattered everywhere, an extremely chaotic, disastrous scene. He launched himself into the air with his skill. Below, the hordes of skeleton soldiers looked up as their enemy departed, unable to do anything. Simultaneously, as he launched into the air, the system announced, "Graceful as the wind skill has been activated. All movement increased by 60%. Current skill stack progress 6-7. Due to the special effect of the D+ rank speed boots, your speed is momentarily increased." He seemed to fly through the sky, soaring over thousands of skeleton soldiers below. They hadn't even reacted to his incredible speed. They hadn't even noticed he had passed by. He shot off like a hurricane. As soon as he landed, he ran quickly so the skeleton soldiers wouldn't see him. Otherwise, they might chase him again. After running for a bit since landing, he saw a castle in the distance. Perhaps that was where the voice came from. Reaching there would surely lead him to the one controlling these skeleton soldiers. He felt as if he had found light in a dark place. Perhaps reaching that place would help him complete the mission of the 8th floor trial. He said, "Over there." Seeing the castle clearly, he rushed towards it at full speed. Not only did he want to meet that voice again, but the person who emitted that voice must have been waiting to see who dared to venture into his land. That person seemed to be the lord of this place, as on his head was a crown, signifying his status as the lord of this region. Although also made of bone, around him was a turquoise flame, like raging waves, furious at the intruder who dared to venture here. In his hand, he held a powerful book. It seemed this book was his weapon. He saw him arrive just as he dashed to face this skull lord. He smiled challengingly and said, "Found you." He was enraged and said to him, "A lowly human dares to come to my sacred land." He used his skill. The book immediately opened. From within the book, the roars of monsters could be heard. A torrent of red power gushed out of the book. He spoke with arrogance. "You will pay dearly." Those red torrents were a portal bringing giant monsters from another dimension here through the power of the book. These giants roared terrifyingly. If an ordinary person heard it, their morale would surely drop. Yet Han Sung-yoon just looked on with a perfectly normal expression, as if they were just big and nothing else to him. Outwardly, he acted surprised and exclaimed, "Oh!" But inwardly, he thought, "It's about on par with the sand golem." The Skull Lord, pleased with himself, laughed and said, "Haha, now do you understand what kind of land you've stepped into?" His voice boomed, drowning out the Lord's. "Anyway," he continued, "can't you summon anything stronger?" Around him were giant monsters exuding an aggressive aura, while the Lord was just dumbfounded by his statement, exclaiming, "What?" He probably didn't expect this human to dare belittle the giants he had just summoned, and to remain so calm and fearless. He opened the system, drew a sword with one hand, and rubbed that wrist with the other to warm up for battle. He said, "If this is all, I'll be very disappointed." His eyes were filled with desire, a desire to kill all these monsters. Perhaps this was the first time he had been so insulted by a human regarding his abilities. He went berserk, pointing at him and ordering the monsters to attack while screaming, "This damn lunatic! These guards are enough to tear that arrogant mouth of yours apart." The giant monsters saw the attack order of the Lord charged forward, each of their steps shaking the entire region, so much so that their steps shattered the stone slabs they trod upon. A notification appeared. Instantaneous acceleration skill has been activated. Just standing still, yet with a whoosh, he seemed to glide across the ground too fast to be seen. One by one, each monster's head fell off with a swish. Before the Lord could even see it, perhaps all his minions were already dead. He quickly dashed behind the skull-headed figure, then slashed at its head, but it managed to turn and shout, "What?" He struck once, sending it flying hard to the ground, shattering into pieces, rock fragments flying up. Notification appeared. Proficiency increased by 1.2%. Proficiency increased by 1.2%. With the significant increase in proficiency, Han Sung-yoon was overjoyed. He thought to himself, "Undead really increase my proficiency a lot." Realizing that he was not an easy opponent, he began to worry. With his legs gone, he could only sit on the ground, gaping at him. Now he was truly afraid of the human standing before him. He asked, "Where did a monster like you come from?" In his eyes, Han Sung-yoon was like a demon that had suddenly appeared with the intention of destroying this place. He stepped forward, raising his sword high, preparing to finish off this lord. He said, "Now, let's end this," to the terrified screams of the Lord. Then his eyes suddenly noticed something more interesting. It was his rather mysterious-looking book. It had helped him summon those giants. He thought to himself, "Based on this, the zombie can summon any monster it wants. In that case, maybe playing around with this a bit wouldn't hurt, and it could also increase my proficiency." He smiled devilishly, thinking to himself, why not make him my slave? He picked up the book and threw it at him. The Lord still didn't understand what was happening. He had probably thought he was dead by now, yet he was still alive. He said to him, can you summon other skeleton soldiers? The Lord looked at him, puzzled. Why are you asking me that? He was too lazy to answer this guy and then moved closer to threaten him, saying, if you can't, then it's over. Seeing him approach closer, he waved his hands, signaling him not to come any further, screaming, don't come here, go away. Han Sung-yoon also gave this Skull Lord a chance. He said, when you can summon a guard monster. For his own life, this Skull Lord tried to buy as much time as possible. He immediately replied, when a guard dies, I can summon another one a few minutes later. He thought for a moment, then said, then summon one right now. He immediately and obediently replied, all right. Perhaps because he was afraid Han Sung-yoon could decapitate him instantly like the others, he obediently complied. He continued, do it. Then he wondered again, why, they can't fight you anyway. He threatened him again as if telling him to summon quickly and shut up, speaking with authority. I'm tired. Should I end this right now? He hastily flipped through the book with a terrified expression. He said, I'll summon it right now. Using his skill, the pages of the book flipped rapidly. The red stream, like before, revealed dimensional gates, leading the same kind of monsters as before to appear. They emerged, obeying the Lord's command, and charged with great ferocity, as if wanting to tear him apart. Yet in a flash he masterfully wielded his sword, and they lay like corpses on the ground. The Lord watched him kill them with ease and asked, that's enough, right? He glanced at him, his right hand swinging the sword with a powerful gust of wind. He said, no, it's just beginning. He said, resurrect all the dead skeleton soldiers and summon more guards here. Then he kicked him as if urging him to quickly summon them. He used his hands to shield himself from his kicks, then said, yes, yes. Each one summoned was immediately slain. Many died before they even saw him. The Lord looked like he was about to burst into tears on the spot, whimpering, how long do I have to keep doing this? Unexpectedly, he was also too cruel, scaring this Lord to the point of tears. But perhaps he didn't care much about his current emotions. He just kept swinging his sword, slashing them one by one. The stone monster roared, swinging its arms, bringing its powerful fist down on Han Sung-yoon. Its eyes glowed golden, its face contorted in anger, while Han Sung-yoon just stood still, unmoving. He slowly raised his hand, his expression cold, calm to a frightening degree, his sea-blue eyes emitting a dangerous killing intent. The moment Han Sung-yoon and the stone monster's hands met, a small bright light exploded, accompanied by a deafening, sky-shattering boom that echoed throughout the surrounding areas. A giant stone monster was stopped by a small human, who didn't even budge. Quick as a flash, Han Sung-yoon launched himself from the ground onto the stone monster's arm, holding a small dagger, his eyes glinting with a hint of killing intent. This took the monster by surprise, leaving it no time to react. Before the monster could understand what was happening, its head was no longer on its neck and blood splattered into the sky. Following that, a system notification announced that proficiency had increased by 1.2%. The monster fell, and a stream of foul liquid gushed from its severed head. Simultaneously, the system notification chimed. Proficiency increased by 1.2%. The notification wasn't over. The mechanical sound of the system hadn't stopped. It continued to display the notification. Proficiency of the unique characteristic Necromancy Art has reached 100%. The unique characteristic Necromancy Art has risen by 1 level. A blue light emanated from Han Sung-yoon's chest. His body felt like it was ascending to a new level. His expression remained icy, but the surprise in his eyes betrayed him. The light seemed to be supplementing his body with more power. My necromancy art has reached C rank, Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, a joyful expression visible deep within his sea-blue eyes. Suddenly, a slow, eerie voice called out, interrupting his joyful thoughts. You insane monster! Even demons would be terrified to face you. I will curse you after I die. The black-robed figure with a skull face was sitting limply on the ground. The blue flames around him seemed about to go out, but he sat there, uttering curses, cursing Han Sung-yoon. After speaking, he gasped for breath, his face also cracking apart. The cracks were gradually spreading each time the skull-faced figure summoned. It seemed he wasn't going to last much longer. Han Sung-yoon, holding a small dagger, slowly advanced towards the skull-faced figure. I was planning to use you a little longer, but it's a pity. Han Sung-yoon's eyes were blood red. His face showed no emotion as he raised the small knife, as if to finish off the skull-faced man immediately. Meeting you really makes me sick, human. Before he could finish his sentence, Han Sung-yoon swung the knife down in an arc, and the skull-faced man's head fell from his neck. After finishing him off, level-up notifications continuously appeared from the system. You have received a reward, Mortal Surpassing Demons. Along with that, agility increased by 1. You have absorbed the soul of the zombie. Proficiency has increased by 17.4%. A blood-red orb appeared in Han Sung-yoon's hand. All the surrounding energy seemed to gather and compress into that small orb. Han Sung-yoon's face remained the same, cold and expressionless. The system's sound hadn't stopped, continuing to announce congratulations. You have completed the 8 trial floors of the tower. All stats will increase by 2 as a reward for completing the trial. You receive 30,000 points as a reward for completing the mission. Simultaneously, you receive 3,000 products as a completion reward. Please proceed to the Grand Hall. After the system's announcement, a portal suddenly appeared from space. You have entered the Grand Hall at the 9th floor. The system has also begun to complete its functions. The operating department is now ready to observe the entire examination process. Restrictions have been lifted, and you can now purchase C-rank skills at the skill shop. Han Sung-yoon had just set foot in the Grand Hall when system notifications began to sound continuously. Han Sung-yoon just smirked. Absorbing skills is already overpowered enough, and to inherit proficiency on top of that is just too. Before he could even marvel at how overpowered the skill was, his eyes fell upon another skill. Moreover, the probability of absorbing the technique is clearly indicated. Although the trial on the previous 8 floors ended rather tediously, it doesn't mean the 9th floor will be the same. I need to prepare thoroughly for this floor. I can still use this sword a bit longer. The remaining issue is my defensive skill, he said while raising the sword to observe it. Now he needed another sword skill to replace it. As soon as the thought ended, he opened the skill shop. The skills he could buy were listed. Han Sung-yoon, resting his hand, scrolled through each item, searching for what he needed. But it seemed the start wasn't very promising, as there were very few sword skills he could use. Han Sung-yoon looked dejected and continued scrolling through the shop page. Unable to find the desired skill, he had a bold idea. If that was the case, he would create the skill himself. No sooner said than done. Han Sung-yoon spent points to buy Basic Swordsmanship E. That skill cost him 25,000 points. Basic Swordsmanship skill, E-rank effect, increases basic understanding of swordsmanship, and the slashing power of the equipped sword increases by 1.5 times. However, the sword enhancement effect does not stack with other weapon skills. Han Sung-yoon thought to himself, Basic Swordsmanship skill enhances all sword-related skills. To level up the Hunter's Dagger skill using the Skill Synthesis Authority, I need to know the compatibility for fusion. Among my current skills, the most suitable one must be Basic Swordsmanship, Hunter's Dagger skill D rank, and Basic Swordsmanship skill EE. In the quiet space, the mechanical sounds of the system echoed. The levels of the fusion materials are uneven. The synthesis process will revolve around the Hunter's Dagger skill. The synthesis process will focus on the Hunter's Dagger skill. The fusion rate of the skill synthesis process is 75%. Do you agree to fuse? Without hesitation, Han Sung-yoon immediately pressed Agree. After pressing Agree, a mysterious golden glowing skill appeared, and the system's voice sounded again. Demon Hunter skill Sia has been created. The dazzling golden light emitted made him quite surprised, and he silently wondered, Demon Hunter? Demon Hunter Skill C, a type of swordsmanship for hunters created to slay demons. Basic effect: all basic knowledge of swordsmanship will be increased. Simultaneously, the slashing power of equipped daggers and swords will increase threefold. However, this effect does not stack with other skills. Additional effect: when fighting non-human enemies, your attack speed will increase twofold. My attack speed increases twofold when fighting non-human enemies, huh? It seems like this is a skill exclusively for monsters. Han Sung-yoon's eyes lit up. As expected, skill synthesis is truly good stuff, accompanied by an extremely dangerous-looking smile. Afterwards, he wondered to himself whether he should fuse all the remaining skills. As he thought, he imagined skill combination like gambling. Even though he knew doing too much wasn't good, he couldn't resist the temptation. He flashed a naive but dangerous-looking smile and continued to press agree to fuse skills, muttering, "I'll check the skill compatibility and synthesis probability." This time, Han Sung-yoon chose to fuse Rapid Recovery Skill D rank, Defy Natural Law Skill D rank, along with Lost Blood Regeneration Skill C rank, and finally, Resist Suffering Skill D rank. The resulting product was Gray Blood Skill B. The brilliant golden light from fusing the skills reappeared, illuminating the dark and gloomy space. Gray Blood Skill C is an extremely powerful ability created by a mutated vampire. The skill's effect is that the user's regeneration ability is directly proportional to their tenacity. Regeneration is tripled when taking physical damage, and pain will be reduced by up to 40% depending on the type of damage received. Although Han Sung-yoon's full expression couldn't be seen, just looking at his eyes made it clear how incredibly surprised he was. He immediately wanted to test the skill, but the Grand Hall area had a recovery effect, so Han Sung-yoon couldn't go there. He pondered that at this point, 100 points wasn't too much. No sooner said than done. He immediately spent his points to remove the recovery system in the Grand Hall, deducting 50 points. At the same time, the system reminded him that fatigue would accumulate and he wouldn't be able to recover from physical damage. Because Han Sung-yoon had absorbed all the souls, the protective shield would no longer be activated. As he thought, he raised the sword in his hand, aimed straight at his wrist, and blood splattered, even reaching Han Sung-yoon's hand. One could see how powerful the slash was. Seemingly not satisfied with one slash, Han Sung-yoon delivered several more. Normally, his hand would have been crippled, but he possessed an incredibly overpowered recovery skill, so his arm was immediately enveloped in a green light and healed completely. Han Sung-yoon was also very surprised to witness this skill. What a marvelous ability! Even if I'm not in the hall, the recovery ability is still too incredible, he exclaimed, looking at his healed arm. Now that Han Sung-yoon had both the soul shield and an overpowered recovery skill, he felt he didn't need anything else. Setting aside the skill issue, Han Sung-yoon looked at his attire. Well, I'll just wear it until it's completely worn out and then change. Anyway, I still like it. Han Sung-yoon consoled himself while looking at his clothes. Is there anything new on the forum now? Suddenly, the urge to gossip welled up inside him. Without thinking, he immediately went to the forum page, but he was disappointed. There was nothing interesting there. There wasn't much time left, and I don't need to wait any longer. Putting the forum matter aside, Han Sung-yoon stepped straight into the dimensional gate, beginning the new trial. You have entered the 9th floor of the trial tower. Difficulty: hard. The theme of this trial is combat. Time remaining: 1 day. Condition to complete the trial: eliminate all monsters in the arena within the specified time. Trial failure: challenger dies or time runs out. Reward upon completion: receive the Beast Instinct skill C. Penalty for failure: only death. While observing the mission board, a red exclamation mark warning suddenly appeared on the board, making Han Sung-yoon jump slightly. Currently, Challenger Han Sung-yoon's trial on the 9th floor is very dangerous because a challenger from the martial world has infiltrated this floor. The trial target of the challenger from the martial world has been defeated. Before he could understand anything, the system had transported him to a secret realm. Before him appeared a figure trampling on heaps of other monster corpses, apparently just defeated. Seemingly recognizing this person, Han Sung-yoon's blue eyes lit up as if in recognition. Before he could speak, the mysterious figure spoke first. "So you've finally arrived." The system notification continued to appear. "Trial target has changed." He continued his introduction. "I am Baek Sun-ha, Martial Lord of the Martial Alliance." The mission given by the system at that time was to defeat Baek Sun-ha, the challenger from the martial world. Han Sung-yoon observed him while thinking, "A challenger from another world." He continued to speak. "What is your name?" Han Sung-yoon remained silent, his brow furrowed as he looked at him. "Why are you suddenly asking for my name?" "Humph, because I've already revealed my identity," Han Sung-yoon said with a stern face. "Your intrusion into my tower floor means no good, so revealing my name now is useless." He sternly said, "That is the minimum courtesy among fellow practitioners. It seems your mind is still quite narrow, isn't it?" Han Sung-yoon's expression showed no confusion towards this stranger from another dimension. Truly speechless. Why are challengers from other worlds like this all so bizarre? He frowned slightly. He sternly raised his sword, which still held some lingering magic, his expression unchanged. "Very well then. Talking to someone who doesn't understand etiquette is useless." As soon as he finished speaking, he leaped forward, rushing towards Han Sung-yoon at lightning speed. He used his skill on his sword. Immediately after, tens of thousands of swords appeared, stabbing straight towards Han Sung-yoon. Graceful as the wind skill has been activated. His current movement speed has increased by 30%. Current stack count is 37. Han Sung-yoon saw the attack from Baek Sun-ha. His expression didn't change. In fact, the coldness on his face intensified. Using the speed skill he had just acquired, he instantly used his sword to block all the incoming attacks. He used his strongest attack to repel those tens of thousands of swords, creating an enormous surge of power. Even he himself was extremely surprised by Han Sung-yoon's strength, but he quickly regained his composure and pretended to exclaim, "Oh, I didn't expect this. So there are experts here too, huh? Forgive me for underestimating you." Han Sung-yoon just let out a sharp breath. "Stop with that elegant act. You came here to kill me and take the reward. If you came for that purpose, why pretend and act all fake? It's truly disgusting." His face was filled with indignation, his eyes radiating a powerful killing intent. "It's clearly because you come from a world we've never seen with our own eyes." He slightly opened his purple eyes, which had been tightly shut until now. Baek Sun-ha stood straight, sword raised high in his hand. A strong wind seemed to push away all the polluted air around him. His power was quite formidable. The sword in his hand shone brightly amidst the thick, dark smoke. He spoke in a calm voice, but with a hint of disdain hidden deep within. "Farewell, nameless swordsman." Han Sung-yoon couldn't believe this old man was so strong, but by the time he realized it, a thick black mist had enveloped him. Following that, he vaguely heard the system's voice. "Opponent has deployed the unique ability, Sword Light. You will be blinded for 5 seconds." Baek Sun-ha swung his sword, creating a whirlwind, and spoke. "Farewell, nameless swordsman." Han Sung-yoon, attacked unexpectedly, raised his hands to defend himself. The screen displayed a notification. "Affected by the unique characteristic Light Sword. You will be blinded for 5 seconds." He was shocked when he saw the information. His face panicked, holding a sword in a ready stance. He thought, "Vision gone." Although he couldn't see, he very quickly slashed his sword towards the direction of the recent attack. System notification. Loss of vision from the unique characteristic Light Sword has ended. He swung his sword, launching continuous attacks at him. He calmly held his sword in one hand, the other clasped behind his back, very agilely and calmly dodging all of his attacks. The gray blood skill activated. He stood calmly, recovering from the wound on his neck, looking ahead and thinking, "Almost got caught." The old man on this side spoke up, asking, "How did you know?" System notification. Instantaneous acceleration skill activated. Graceful as the wind skill activated. All speeds increased by 50%. Skill passive stacking progress 5-7. His hand gripped the sword, body leaning forward, one hand on the ground in an attack stance. With a flash of sharp eyes, he flew quickly towards his opponent. The old man stood still, listening attentively to the movements around him. The two sides clashed swords fiercely, evenly matched. The tips of their swords clashed, emitting a dazzling spark. He looked at the person in front of him and performed a spinning motion, preparing to swing his leg. His long leg swung out, kicking at his leg. Although he jumped up, he was still hit. Baek Sun-ha slashed his sword at the leg, kicking his knee. He quickly retracted his leg, spun around once to dodge the attack. Han Sung-yoon, holding his sword, swung it up, but the old man grabbed his wrist. He kicked again with his other leg at the old man's sword hand. Neither side intended to let go and maintained their stance. He still held Han Sung-yoon's sword wrist firmly and spoke. "The dark magic you use is very strange." Hearing that, he was stunned and thought, truly speechless. I've improved this much, yet our stats are still the same as before. He broke free from the grip and jumped up, pointing his sword straight at the opponent's face. Baek Sun-ha's eyes were full of killing intent as he raised his sword and spoke. "I will no longer hold back." A sword strike from him came down. System information arrived. Due to the unique characteristic light sword, you will be blind for 5 seconds. He fell into darkness once again, cursing in anger. Damn it! He used his skill. Mana resistance activated, blindness duration reduced to 2.5 seconds. Spirit Eye skill activated. He sensed countless attacks right before his eyes. Han Sung-yoon used his sword to continuously dodge and block the attacks, thinking, "This is insane." His attack speed has increased dramatically. He was suddenly struck by an attack slashing across his body. Notification displayed. Unique skill Iron Protection of the Forged Iron Chain activated. 10% of physical damage will be absorbed. He tried his best to use his sword to block the attack slashing across his body. Unfortunately, one of his hands was severed. He quickly used the pain resistance skill, which activated. He looked at his severed hand and thought, Iron Protection couldn't block that entire blow. Notification. Loss of vision from the unique characteristic light sword has ended. He jumped back, dodging the old man's attack. His feet landed, creating considerable friction. Han Sung-yoon's hand was still bleeding. He turned and glanced at the opponent behind him. He quickly leaped onto the rock in front of him to distract the opponent. He too stood motionless, listening to the sound in front. He swung his sword, delivering a massive blow towards the rock in front. With his arm bleeding incessantly, he tried to fly as fast as possible to escape the attack. The rock in front shattered, but at the same time Han Sung-yoon also dodged and flew behind Baek Sun-ha. He heard the sound and glanced over his shoulder. On this side, he was using a skill to regenerate his severed hand. Seeing this, he spoke sternly. "Dark magic again. I thought you were a skilled martial artist, but it seems you only know how to borrow those tricks from elsewhere." Eyes closed, sword hand loosened, while the injured hand clenched into a fist to assess the recovery. He spoke. "Isn't the unique characteristic you're using a skill obtained from the tower?" His hand clenched into a fist. He let out a sarcastic laugh and said, "What a hypocrite." He pointed his sword forward and said, "Are you planning to use dark magic again? A swordsman relying on such borrowed skills." He seized the opportunity when the old man wasn't paying attention and advanced with his sword from the right. Just as he brought his sword down, the old man managed to block the attack with his own sword. He spoke in surprise. "What is this?" He with a cold expression spoke, "Or perhaps you'll die by these borrowed skills." He struggled to hold his sword horizontally, bracing against the sharp blade in front of him. He recalled, "I have overcome countless challenge floors," with a blood-soaked sword, thinking, "I've killed countless challengers from thousands of worlds with this sword, especially those from Earth, who were extremely weak, to the point they were called honeypots." He remembered that challengers from Earth couldn't even touch a hair on his head. Moreover, using the unique characteristic light sword was enough to finish them in one blow. But looking at the person in front thrusting a sword at him, he had a different thought. This time should have been similar. Although he dodged to the side to avoid the sword tip, He was a bit slow, causing his tied-up hair to come undone, enraging him to the point of grinding his teeth. Unable to believe it, he glared at the person in front. Countless attacks rained down continuously. He was relentlessly attacked, forced to retreat backward. His face also bore quite a few wounds from the attacks. He let out a long sigh, taking a moment to rest and use his skill to heal the slashes on his face. The old man, hair disheveled and face covered in slashes, retreated, panting heavily. He fell silent upon seeing the displayed notifications. Administrator White Crane Swordsman is astonished by the young challenger's prowess. Administrator Monster of the North predicts your imminent defeat. Administrator Ruler of the Night is intrigued by the young challenger. Administrator Hero of the Dark Island is amazed by the young challenger's skill execution. He gritted his teeth with a ferocious expression, as if unwilling to accept defeat. The old man held his sword and used all his skills, determined to fight to the end. Han Sung-yoon, seeing this, also smiled sarcastically and said, "Didn't you despise magic?" System notification. Penalty for invading floor now in effect. All stats decreased by 8. You cannot use a portion of your skills. He thought angrily. Damn it. Notification displayed. Skill 1 arrow, 2 kills forcibly disabled. Skill Light Sword Chi forcibly disabled. Cooldown for unique characteristic Light Sword has ended. Unique characteristic Light Sword activated. Han Sung-yoon once again fell into darkness and thought, I'm getting used to this rhythm. He activated the Spirit Eye skill. He swung his sword and advanced, roaring fiercely, "You devil, I'll cut you down!" An attack was heading towards Han Sung-yoon. He also used a skill. The screen displayed, 3-step slash skill activated. The next 3 attacks will be enhanced by the skill effect. His face revealed a vicious expression as he gritted his teeth and advanced. He leaped up and decisively parried the incoming attack. Notification displayed. Loss of vision from the unique characteristic Light Sword has ended. He, covered in wounds, held his sword loosely, hunched over and panting heavily. Behind him, Baek Sun-ha stood motionless. The sword fell to the ground with a clang. He wearily knelt on one knee to rest while the old man walked in the opposite direction. A deep gash ran across his abdomen. His whole body trembled uncontrollably as he walked. The old man, with a ferocious expression, uttered, "Impossible." Behind Han Sung-yoon, blood began to gush uncontrollably from his abdomen. He struggled to stand up, while behind him, the old man had been cut in two and fell to the ground. Behind Han Sung-yoon, blood began to gush uncontrollably from his abdomen. He struggled to stand up, while behind him, the old man had been cut in two and fell to the ground. He was delighted when the screen displayed, "Congratulations, you have just completed the 9th floor of the trial tower." He waved his hand, absorbing Baek Sun-ha's soul. System notification. You have absorbed the soul of Challenger Baek Sun-ha, abilities increased by 27%. He exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, 27%, not bad." System notification. Congratulations on completing the 9th floor of the trial tower. The reward and difficulty of the tower floor have not yet been determined. The reward is being re-evaluated. Seeing this, he thought to himself about the issue. A similar case has occurred before. I'm worried about how the result will be assessed. Just as he finished thinking, the system announced, "Evaluation complete. Rewards will be granted." He looked at the rewards received on the display screen and thought, 6 cents, huh? It seems to be a higher rank than the basic reward, Monster Instinct. Seeing the dimensional gate open, he walked towards it and said, "All right, I'll take a closer look after I reach the Grand Hall." He approached the gate, skeptical of the information on the display screen. Administrator White Crane Swordsman is impressed by your battle. Administrator Beast of the North is going crazy over your efforts. Administrator Ruler of the Night is enjoying your performance. Administrator Hero of the Dark Island is cheering for your battle. He silently read each displayed screen. Screen display. System is updating. Administrators can now observe the trials. Han Sung-yoon smiled and thought, about this there was already a message like that. Anyway, most of the administrators who witnessed my battle were moved. I feel quite proud because if you look at it another way, it means they have acknowledged me. Screen display. Iron-blooded Tyrant King is grimacing at the reactions of other administrators. Iron-blooded Tyrant King is reminding you not to be swayed by other administrators. He looked at the screen and said with difficulty, "Yes." Screen display. Administrator White Crane Swordsman wishes to have more authority over contractors in the exclusive shop. Do you agree? He was surprised and thought, White Crane Swordsman wants... He exclaimed in astonishment, "What is happening? Are they like this just because they want to grant me authority?" He looked at the screen display. Iron-blooded Tyrant King believes you can accept this authority. Iron-blooded Tyrant King says they grant authority to gain the favor of contractors. He wondered aloud, "Can I receive it?" Suddenly a thought occurred. What good is there in receiving favor from those who have completed their trials? He asked, confused. So you will contact me at some point? He fell silent when he saw White Crane Swordsman smiling and saying, not just once, but many times. Iron-blooded Tyrant King said that the granted authority isn't very beneficial, so don't worry about it too much. Seeing this, he thought to himself, it's not a good authority, but they want to gain favor from me? In the end, they just want something back after giving me something, right? Then I don't need to hesitate. He touched the screen and said, "Thank you." White Crane Swordsman's authority has been added. Chi Swordmaster has been added to the exclusive shop. Authority category. White Crane Swordsman is smiling, hoping you will remember his kindness. He replied, "I understand. I will use it well." He thought doubtfully, common area? He was confused and reconsidered. Can administrators also observe what happens here? He suddenly asked aloud, "Are you still observing?" He looked around silently. Han Sung-yoon put his hand to his mouth and coughed a few times. The screen displays, Contractor's Authority Shop is opening. Brief introductory information about the authority category. He reached out his hand in confusion and touched the screen. The screen displayed information about the Chi Swordmaster authority. He thought, I can channel mana into my weapon and use sword ki? He exclaimed in surprise. They said this is a normal ability, but it seems pretty good. He scrolled to number 2 and exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, I can see the next page now." Looking at the screen displaying introductory information. Authority type. Bone Regeneration Authority. Iron Blood Sword. Death God's Hand. Looking through the introductory information, he smiled and said, "These skills are amazing." But then thought, but I only have 2,000 SP in my account. The authorities I need to buy now are Bone Regeneration and Chi Swordmaster, one of these skills. He looked at the skills, hesitating and thinking, which one should I choose? Should I try to earn more money? His index finger was about to raise as he thought, Old Man Baek Soon Ha, whom I met on the 9th floor, was also a powerful individual. With a determined gaze at the screen, his finger touched to select, thinking, to avoid dying like the others, I need to acquire these skills. Screen display, authority, Sword Chi Master purchased, 1,500 SP consumed. He held the glowing sword as it was announced that the Sword Chi Master authority had been activated. He swung the sword a few times and said, there are 3 mana-using skills, however. This one feels really different. He thought, if the other skills channeled mana into the sword like a waterfall, this skill is like a gentle stream. Screen display. Chi Swordmaster authority activated. 1 minute mana consumption increased by 2%. Chi Swordmaster authority activated. 2 minutes, mana consumption increased by 4%. Chi Swordmaster authority activated. 3 minutes, mana consumption 6%. Looking at the analysis, he whispered to himself, mana consumption increases by 2% every minute, so it will consume 100% mana in just 50 minutes. Hand holding the sword, he deactivated the Chi Swordmaster authority. He thought, I need to control my mana well when using this. He pointed at the screen and said, what about the 6th sense from the 9th floor? Looking at the information stats panel, he said, well, that means my senses will be improved, right? One hand crossed over his chest, the other supporting his chin. He looked at the screen and said, if my senses can reach such a peak, there will surely be many benefits. He looked at the displayed community section and thought, all right, Hopefully someone will guide me in this new plaza. A notification displayed, "You have joined the hard difficulty community on the 10th floor." He looked at many comments discussing the 10th floor and thought, I knew it. He used 2 fingers to scroll on the screen, thinking, there are quite a few comments about the plaza being added when I reached the 10th floor lobby. While scrolling, he was suddenly startled as if he saw something. He looked at a comment that read, "When I reached the plaza, a strange foreigner offered to trade authorities with me." After reading it, he exclaimed in astonishment, "Authorities can be traded too." Holding his sword in one hand, he scrolled continuously on the screen with the other, smiling cheerfully and saying, "Well then, I should go there and experience it myself, right?" System reports, "You have been teleported to the 10th floor Grand Hall." 2 people stepped out of the dimensional gate. He looked ahead cheerfully and said, "So this is the plaza, huh?" He thought, "I used a question ticket to ask a few things. I'll go get as many benefits as I can and then come back." Behind the trees, someone was watching the 2 cheerfully walking individuals. One of the onlookers, arms crossed, spoke, "I think these bastards are from Korea." The person beside him, hand on hip, replied, "That's right. He's an A-rank Korean hunter. I remember reading his profile." Hearing the answer, that person said, "It's annoying how they still think they come from a powerful country." That person, with a fiendish face and a wicked smile, said, "People are allowed to kill outside the plaza, right?" A woman walked ahead, a man following behind. The 2 strolled leisurely, flanked by lush trees and bushes. System notification. Mana consumption reaches 100% when using the special skill Weakening Light. Under the effect of the special skill Terror, skills are reduced by 20%. Under the effect of the skill Ghastly Light, body parts are weakened. The man walking behind suddenly collapsed to his knees. His body couldn't move. He spoke in fear. My body." Suddenly, laughter echoed from behind him. He struggled to turn his face and look. The figures of 3 tall men appeared right before his eyes. He spoke in panic. "Stop it, please! What are you doing?" The leader licked the sharp sword in front of him and said, "We're also wondering what we're doing, Korean. You come from the kingdom of powerful hunters, so you should know, right?" Hearing that, he thought anxiously, "I'm going to die. They're already here to rob me before I even participate in the trial." 2 robbers stood behind while another advanced, crouched down, and held his sword in front of the young man kneeling on the ground. A scream rang out, "Please stop!" The girl walking with the young man turned around, saw the scene, and spoke fearfully, Are you allowed to do this? If you don't stop, I'll report you to the community." The leader narrowed his eyes and looked at her, saying, He suddenly stood up and casually said, "Is that so? All right then, what if—" He stood up, looking straight at her menacingly, and threatened, "You take his place, then I'll consider stopping." That person stood in front of his 2 accomplices, resting his sword on his shoulder, and said with a laugh, "If you leave all your items as I said, I'll let one of you go." The girl, angry and frightened, took a step back and said, "What are you talking about?" That person continued, "Or would you prefer I do it myself?" Behind him, Han Sung-yoon casually walked past. That person suddenly heard a noise behind him and turned his head to look. Han Sung-yoon, wearing a hooded cloak, walked past as if nothing was happening, brushing past the group and continuing forward. The leader asked his accomplice, "Who the hell is that?" He looked at Han Sung-yoon's back and called out, "Hey, Black Hood!" Han Sung-yoon glanced over his shoulder. He took off his hood, smiled casually, and said, "Are you calling me?" He stepped towards Han Sung-yoon and said, "Yeah, you, but—" The 3 robbers suddenly laughed menacingly and said, "You're Korean too, right?" The 3 of them suddenly swung their arms, attacking Han Sung-yoon. He looked at the attack in front of him in surprise. He calmly spoke, "I just wanted to be humble."